Divine relics are reserved only for the elite, those born under heaven's golden favor. These armaments manifest from one's soul, granting extraordinary, godlike powers to their chosen masters. Long ago, a noble clan crushed an ancient deity. Their descendants inherit absolute battle perfection. They possess bodies built for war, genius talent, and legendary weapons that defy logic. Our protagonist, born into this bloodline, yearned to become a legendary hero using his power. Destiny seemed certain, until the day of the sacred oracle ceremony finally arrived. Reality shattered when no weapon appeared. He was the first defect in their glorious history. Instantly cast aside, he became a laughingstock, enduring brutal torment from his cruel and unsympathetic brother, Zane. To Zane, a weaponless failure was mere trash that didn't deserve to breathe their air. He used the boy's face as a punching bag, claiming it was for his own good. Jessica and Sarah watched this nightmare unfold, unable or unwilling to stop the abuse. Jessica savored the cruelty, while Sarah trembled, her heart breaking for her helpless friend. When Sarah tried to intervene, Jessica viciously tripped her, forcing her into the dirt. She was forced to witness the pathetic end of those without a future or divine power. Seeing Sarah humiliated fueled his rage, but he was pinned down, helpless and completely broken. Their tormentors spat that half-blood mongrels always clung together in their pathetic filth. Every strike was accompanied by venomous insults meant to crush his very spirit. Born of concubines, they were treated like stray mutts by the clan's legitimate heirs. Broken and bleeding, he apologized. She smiled through tears, vowing to stay by his side. But he refused to remain a victim. He swore to transcend limits without a divine gift, vowing to protect her with his life. Embracing him tightly, she whispered her gratitude for his unwavering and brave resolve. Fate was cruel. Just days later, the clan banished him like common garbage. Rage consumed him. He knew Sarah would suffer alone unless he grew powerful enough to win. Mortal steel was useless against divine knights. He needed to achieve the impossible immediately. With no other choice, he threw his last coins onto a dusty shop counter. He demanded one weapon of every kind, his eyes burning with a strange, dark fire. The merchant thought him insane. 2 years of hellish training had passed since his exile. Now a traveler, he roamed the lands, still lacking a divine soul weapon of his own. Before him stood a horde of monsters. He reached for his massive and diverse arsenal. Mastery flowed through his veins. He had even perfected a lethal firearm for his enemies. The beasts were slaughtered in an instant, unable to even scream before his might. From the shadows, a hooded figure watched, finally stepping forward to challenge the boy. He questioned if the boy's massive arsenal was a desperate mask for his missing soul. The stranger was seeking a true champion, someone with a spark to become a legendary hero. The protagonist felt an overwhelming aura, radiating from this mysterious and powerful wanderer. His words sounded like madness. Yet a blinding blue light erupted, launching a celestial artifact toward the young warrior. A shimmering object pierced the earth, leaving the boy completely breathless with pure awe. The man entrusted him with the relic, which pulsed with terrifying, ancient energy. Reaching out, he expected a holy blade, his fingers finally brushing the cold metal. It was the divine sheath of Avalon, a legendary vessel capable of housing multiple soul weapons. An heirloom of the gods. It contained the power of history's 5 greatest masters, granting him the world's ultimate arsenal. Mastery was his only obsession. 100 years of hellish training had passed. Alongside his mentor, he faced a colossal dragon. The beast roared in fury. Its breath promised total annihilation for every living soul on Earth. Unfazed by the heat, he summoned the legendary artifact, Avalon. He gripped the hilt, commanding his divine power to awaken at last. Holy light erupted as the sacred artifact finally manifested in his grasp. An absolute barrier formed, easily nullifying the dragon's lethal strike. Time for a counter. He invoked the thunderous storm hammer, Mjolnir. He soared upward, delivering a god-shattering blow to the beast's head. One hit crushed it. Mastery over Avalon was finally his. Go to your sister. Not even S-rank legends can stop you now. Hope burned in his eyes. The time for their reunion had arrived. 5 years of exile ended. His power was now truly absolute. Wait for me, Sarah. I am coming to rescue you from that hell. He arrived only to find a landscape of ash and fire. Through the smoke, he spotted the raised banners of the enemy. House Roth-Windsor. A bloody civil war had torn everything apart. He stormed the castle, desperately searching for any sign of his sister. Inside the hall, a horrific scene shattered his very soul. No, it could not be. His beloved sister lay there, broken. She was silent. The cold hand of death had already claimed her. A broken promise. His agonized roar echoed through the ruins. All this power, yet he failed the only reason he had to live. Suddenly, a lethal bolt of mana tore through his chest. Blood sprayed. An S-rank monster stepped from the shadows. The killer smirked, recognizing the boy who was once banished. It did not matter. He would soon join her in the afterlife. This was the man, the monster who had murdered his sister. Weakened by grief, he watched the blade rise for the final kill. The strike hit home. Then he suddenly awoke before a familiar altar. He stared at his hands, confused. This cathedral, it felt so familiar. The awakening ceremony, but he was certain he had perished. Fate had shifted. He had regressed to the very beginning. Visualize your weapon, the priest commanded. He knew this script well. Expecting failure, he prepared to restart his journey of exile. But then, the world itself began to tremble with power. Avalon appeared. This time, he would change their tragic destiny. His real life begins now. Fate would finally bow to his will. The priest froze, sensing Avalon's overwhelming and divine potential. He waited for the same rejection he had heard once before. A sheath is useless. No, the priest was completely speechless. He smiled confidently. This was the world's ultimate divine relic. He marched through the corridors, searching desperately for his sister. If he had truly regressed, then Sarah was still alive. He reached her door. Hope flickered as he stepped inside. Sarah greeted him with a radiant smile. She was truly alive. Her beauty remained exactly as he remembered. Stunned to see her brother, she rushed forward to embrace him. She eagerly asked how the awakening ceremony ended. Silence followed. He was simply overwhelmed by her presence. Sarah felt his desperation, wondering if something terrible happened. Guilt still haunted him for failing to protect her in his past life. That agonizing memory burned within. He swore she would never suffer again. Finally, he could fulfill his long-awaited promise. Soon, his sister began to playfully protest against his crushing embrace. It was suffocating, yet she felt his love. Then, she looked up and noticed something strange on his face. Unexplained tears streamed down his cheeks, leaving her completely baffled and concerned. She gently stroked his hair, promising they would always have each other. Those words mended his shattered heart instantly. After growing up in Alabama, his peace was shattered. His arrogant brother entered, sneering at their touching reunion. He had searched for Belle. This was Zane, a truly miserable and sadistic soul. The brat claimed he knew the news. His brother had pulled a bizarre item during the awakening ceremony. That meddling priest was a total gossip. Once the main character confirmed receiving a sheath, Zane's contempt exploded. He laughed hysterically, mocking the useless sheath. He claimed it suited a pathetic loser like him. A sheath is no weapon. He called them both absolute idiots who could never fight back. The main character clenched his fist. He was tempted to rearrange the brat's teeth with a single strike. He offered one chance to apologize, but the arrogant jerk completely failed to sense the danger. Shocked by his half-brother's sudden spine, the protagonist issued a final warning to retract his insults immediately. Fueled by pure hatred, the brat decided to teach the concubine's son a lesson he would never forget. Unfortunately, the protagonist had endured years of hellish training under a legendary mentor. He buried a devastating blow into the boy's gut, forcing him to reflect on his arrogance. The brat barely held back his lunch as the sheer force of the impact rattled his insides. He crumpled to the floor, clutching his liver in agony. Towering over the pathetic jerk, the protagonist glared down. He warned the brat never to threaten Sarah again, or he would receive a violent lesson in etiquette. Infuriated, the brat spat out insults. He was ready to escalate this into a lethal confrontation. Drawing his divine weapon, he swore to scorch his brother's skin and make him beg for mercy. Since the brat wanted a real fight, the protagonist told Sarah to stand back and watch. Things were getting interesting. He calmly reassured her, knowing he could handle this garbage with zero effort. Igniting his power, he summoned the legendary Avalon. The mysterious sheath hummed with ancient, terrifying energy. The E-rank paladin laughed, refusing to believe a mere sheath could ever challenge his superior rank and power. Rank was everything. Aladins were strictly divided by absolute power. Power defined status. Upon awakening a divine weapon, everyone starts at the bottom as F rank. Only by successfully channeling mana through their gear could they reach E rank status. D rank unlocked special attacks, but surpassing B rank required absolute mastery over a weapon's unique hidden abilities. It was pathetic seeing him brag about being E rank. The brat was still a total amateur. The protagonist felt zero pressure. His cold confidence only drove the brat into a blind rage. He mocked him further, calling him cute. That snapped it. The brat prepared a strike of overwhelming force. Sarah trembled in fear, certain this fight would turn deadly fast. Grasping the sheath, he invoked the light. Suddenly, the legendary Excalibur materialized with blinding majesty. His flames sputtered out instantly. Staring in shock, the brat had no idea what this holy sword was. The counterstrike sent the arrogant brat stumbling back, completely off balance. Impossible. His divine weapon was sliced like paper. Terror filled his eyes as he realized he was outmatched. He couldn't understand. That sheath was supposed to be empty. Where did this power come from? Looming over him, the protagonist asked if he was satisfied or ready to beg for his life. Like a pathetic loser, he screamed about being tricked, claiming he never knew his brother was armed. That spineless coward would have never dared to attack had he known the truth. Even his final threats were nothing but pathetic bluffs. He scrambled away, humiliated and terrified, his pride utterly shattered. However, our protagonist wasn't finished with him just yet. The hunt continued. Raising the divine lead dispenser, Ragnarok, he took aim. With a sharp crack, a single shot echoed through the room. The pathetic fool tried fleeing. Death whizzed past his ear, slamming into the wall with lethal precision. Staring at the smoldering hole, his soul nearly left his body. Confusion clouded his mind. How could a mere boy wield such a terrifying variety of lethal weaponry? It defied all logic. He had just used a sword. Possessing multiple divine armaments was supposed to be a legendary impossibility. Take this lesson to heart. Touch Sierra again, and there won't be a next time. The choice of survival is yours. With his dignity literally in tatters, the jerk's overwhelming fear reached a new, desperate breaking point. With eyes as cold as a debt collector from hell, he warned that the next mistake would earn him a permanent hole in his skull. Utterly broken, the coward bolted for his life, while the hero calmly dismissed his divine weapon into the void. Sarah watched the spectacle, her eyes wide with absolute wonder. She was safe, yet curious about his divine arsenal. He simply smiled, reminding her that he'd handle everything from now on. To her, he was a hero. And to him, protecting that innocent smile was the only mission that truly mattered. He'd never lose anyone again. Meanwhile, the loser hurried to report his stinging defeat. Running straight to the Duke, he wailed about being humiliated and treated like a common street dog. The Duke's interest piqued at the mention of multiple divine weapons. The jerk insisted such power was cursed. He claimed Bell had sold his soul to a demon for power, and demanded immediate banishment for the traitor. But the Duke didn't care for petty complaints. He saw the potential for a god-tier heir to his legacy. Leaving his throne behind, he ignored his son's whining. His destination was clear. He was going to see Belle. He needed to witness this miraculous power with his own eyes. After the clash, the boy retreated to rest. Victory was sweet, but his youthful body was still a major handicap. Mastering mana in this tiny frame was exhausting, leaving him completely drained of all energy. That elemental shot failed, turning into a basic projectile. He was still stuck at a lowly F rank. He needed more power. Memories of the ancient Roth-Windsorer rivalry began to resurface in his mind. That crest belonged to them, the family's sworn enemies for generations. Any small spark could ignite a war. He was certain his attacker was a pawn from that clan. But history wouldn't repeat itself. To save his sister, he had to seize total control and respect within his family. Suddenly, his bedroom doors burst open. The boy looked up to see a towering figure entering. It had been ages since their last meeting. He wondered why the Great Duke had graced him with his presence. Galleon was a legend of the Great War 20 years ago, having faced the evil god in single combat. Known as the Sword Singer, he had conquered the Dark Continent alone, and trailing behind him was that same pathetic coward. The pieces clicked. He knew exactly why his father had arrived. An accusation was coming, but this was a golden opportunity. To be valued, he had to impress the clan head. He bowed deeply, showing proper etiquette. The old man noted that the boy seemed like a completely different person. For a moment, the Duke spoke as a father, telling his son to ease his stiff posture. With unnerving maturity, Belle refused. A single slip could be fatal, and he had to remain professional before the Duke. The Duke was inwardly stunned by the sheer composure of this young child. He ordered the boy to stand. If Belle wanted to speak to a ruler, then a ruler he would be. Instantly, a suffocating aura filled the room. The Duke's pressure was monstrous. Sibling infighting was a sin he would not tolerate. While Belle showed feigned regret, the jerk smirked, anticipating the brutal punishment that was surely coming. Normal men would have collapsed under that killing intent, but the boy stood tall, unyielding against the storm. He calmly explained that his younger sister had been mercilessly harassed. Hearing the truth, the Duke questioned if his iron laws were broken over a petty squabble. The boy didn't flinch. To a paladin, abandoning his family was a far greater sin than disobeying any earthly order. He would slice through his own blood to protect his sister. The Duke watched closely. Was this the path of a knight? A blade pointed at his throat, yet the boy didn't flinch. Even against the Duke, his iron resolve remained absolutely unbroken. The Duke sighed, choosing to overlook this act of defiance. Zane stood humiliated, a failure who had tormented his own kin. Banished from sight, the Duke's voice boomed with utter disappointment. Courage sparked in Belle's eyes, despite the lethal consequences. He bowed deeply, offering a hollow apology for his recklessness. A true catastrophe night, it was time to reveal his power. Radiant mana surged. The divine armament was finally manifesting. Avalon, a legendary sheath that defied all known logic. The spirit of the original paladin dwelled within that steel. A sword and a gun, the Duke was completely stunned. Both weapons materialized from the depths of Avalon's holy light. 5 legendary weapons. This boy was a walking divine arsenal. Destiny was clear. His son was the world's next hero. The Duke's apathy vanished, replaced by burning, high expectations. The heavy doors closed. Finally, the boy could breathe again. This child's body was a prison. He needed D-rank speed. To hunt orcs and consume their mana was his only path. The first monster fell, its head rolling into the dirt. A massacre began. Something far deadlier had entered these woods. A primal roar shook the trees. The apex predator arrived. Memories of 100 years of exile flooded his mind. Silence reigned. The forest was eerily empty of all life. Then he saw it, orcs torn apart like mere toys. The scene was a visceral portrait of absolute, bloody slaughter. A chilling howl echoed. Death was closing in fast. A blur of claws sent him crashing backward in pain. Fenrir, the D-rank nightmare, was why the forest screamed. He was a mere E-rank facing a legendary beast. One wrong move, and his new life would end here. This beast was faster than any predator he had faced. He lunged aside, barely dodging the creature's lethal, crushing bite. He opened fire, but the wolf moved like a shadow. Low mana made his legendary weapons feel incredibly heavy. Steel flashed. He charged into the wolf's razor-sharp claws. A narrow miss. He spotted a fraction of an opening. The beast danced away, mocking his desperate, failing attack. If he had his peak power, this dog would die. The Fenrir lunged, its eyes glowing with hungry, predatory rage. He braced for impact, feeling his very bones rattle. Trapped, a flurry of claws rained down upon him relentlessly. After centuries of suffering, he refused to die like this. Time to summon Achilles' shield, the ultimate defense and counterattack combo. But the beast is too fast. A side strike sends him tumbling. At this rate, he's nothing more than monster chow. His blades are useless, and that massive hammer is far too slow. Only one forbidden weapon remains. He must unleash it now. Death looms, but he focuses. Aegis, come to me. The creature strikes with everything, yet the impact simply vanishes. A gauntlet of dark energy appears. Better this than death. The predator lunges again, its speed reaching impossible heights. The battle is already over. He's already looming above the beast. The wolf cannot escape. That hammer is ready to shatter bone. A devastating blow. The monster's jaw is pulverized in pure agony. Aegis, the goblet of darkness, grants its wielder godlike strength. A dark voice whispers, "Destroy," but the wolf is still breathing. With every second, his bloodlust and power reach terrifying levels. He dodges effortlessly, thoroughly enjoying the thrill of the hunt. At last, the legendary beast returns to the void. The battle ends, but that weapon's darkness lingers within his soul. Now, he must uncover why a Fenrir haunted these woods. Wait, the hammer is pulsing with a new, vibrant energy. By slaying the beast, he has absorbed its primal attributes. Defeating powerful prey is the only way to grow. Test time. Back at the castle, his sister finishes a delicate flower crown. A gift for her brother, suddenly ripped from her hands. It is Jessica, the bully, mocking the filthy girl's work. She turns to her loyal dog, Spencer, who sneers along. The crown is tossed high and shredded by a cruel whip. Sarah stands helpless while Jessica laughs, bored by the cruelty. Target practice. Jessica levels her weapon at the terrified girl. Bell intervenes. His simple sheath blocks the incoming shot. Sarah is stunned. How did her brother move so fast? Bell smiles coldly. He needed a test subject for his power. No lowly mutt is going to stand in her way. Bell comforts his sister. Now it is time for a lesson. The servant acts tough, but Bell radiates true dominance. He stands tall, carrying the authority of a duke's son. They mock his birth, only igniting a cold, sharp rage. You just got lucky against Zane. You are still weak. Using only a sheath, you really are the ultimate weakling. Bell closes his eyes. Let me show you my real talent. Kill this trash, Jessica orders, her voice trembling with fear. The whip strikes, leaving a trail of freezing ice behind. A D-rank paladin against an E-rank. No contest. I will freeze your legs. There is no escape for you. I will break your body until you are completely unrecognizable. Bell sneered. Your mouth moves more than your blade. It was time this extra learned his place. Spencer unleashed a freezing ice whip, but to Bell, the attack moved like a slow-motion joke. Jessica stood frozen. A mere D-ranked paladin shouldn't have such insane reflexes. He was just a background character. Little did they know, this weakling had endured 100 years of hellish training in his past life. To him, this fight was child's play. Sarah watched, mesmerized by her brother's lethal and elegant dance. Spencer's rage boiled over as he mocked Bell's evasion. Running away again, he spat, unaware of his fate. I'm done dodging, Bell declared. A wave of absolute, crushing confidence sent chills through the entire crowd. Bell dared the fool to prove his threats. Blinded by ego, Spencer lunged forward in a desperate assault. He aimed to freeze Belle solid. The whip lashed out repeatedly, but Belle stood motionless, completely unharmed. Sarah's heart sank as jagged frost encased her brother. Within seconds, Belle was trapped in a frozen tomb. Spencer prepared a final strike. "Is that all?" Belle's voice echoed. "Good, now it's my turn to attack." Spencer recoiled in sudden terror. Belle didn't hesitate, whispering a single, world-shaking word: Ragnarok. His sheath erupted in light, manifesting a divine firearm. "Two divine weapons," Spencer gasped. "That is impossible." Surging mana shattered the ice like glass. From the gun's barrel, a primordial flame began to roar. Belle stepped through the shards, completely free. Jessica watched, her mind reeling at this overwhelming display. Dual-wielding divine armaments was legendary. Now, the time for judgment had arrived for this arrogant noble. A torrent of infernal heat surged towards Spencer. In that moment, the bully realized he faced a monster. He desperately coated himself in layers of frost, praying his ice could withstand the oncoming sun. To Belle, this defense was as fragile as paper. The flames roared forward, consuming the very air. The mana-infused projectile tore through the ice shield. Spencer watched in horror as his certain doom arrived. The impact slammed into his chest with mountain-shattering force, crushing his ribs and his pride instantly. He collapsed into the mud. A supposed nobody had just obliterated a high-ranking paladin with zero effort. As an E-rank, Jessica knew she was next. Belle turned his icy gaze toward her. "It's over." She summoned her weapon with trembling hands, paralyzed by the weight of his absolute killing intent. She pulled the trigger blindly, but every shot flew wide, missing the immovable shadow walking toward her. Terror paralyzed her. She tripped over her own feet, collapsing in the face of a true predator. Belle loomed over her like a silent god of death. Every second felt like an eternity of torment. He held her life in his hands. "Never touch Sarah again," he warned with chilling authority. Paralyzed by fear, she finally fled. Sarah rushed to her brother, her eyes filled with immense gratitude. She checked for wounds, but Belle just smiled. That weakling, his attacks were as soft as silk. Sarah marveled at his power. "I only sought strength to keep you safe, sister," Belle said softly. She placed a new flower crown on his head, thanking her brother for always being her protector. Clutching the gift, Belle made a silent vow. One day, the entire nation would revere his sister. But first, he had to crush the prejudice against their bloodline. Climbing the social ladder would be war. Respect had to be seized. To change their destiny, he needed to achieve the impossible, starting now. Outside the palace, the Duke sat in deep meditation. His sharp focus created a visible aura of power. With a blur of steel, he diced falling leaves into dust. Only then did he acknowledge Belle's presence. "What brings you here, boy?" the Duke asked. Belle stood firm, ready to demand his path. Intrigued by the boy's resolve, the Duke waited. Belle knelt, showing the respect required for his request. Belle requested entry to the elite admission trials. The Duke stared, intrigued by the boy's sudden ambition. "I will serve the king and bring absolute glory to our household," Belle stated with conviction. To maintain their status, the family served as the king's sword, hunting beasts and protecting the realm. This was the fastest way to gain authority. By conquering the most perilous missions, he'd be king. The exam was the gateway to power. The Duke saw fire in Belle that shouldn't exist. "You have spirit," the Duke mused, "but you are still far too young for this trial." Promotion to C rank? Preposterous. He was a mere F rank who just awakened his weapon. The E rank exam was his priority, but the Duke didn't know the boy held a secret. Belle tossed a jagged fang onto the table, challenging the Duke's low expectations. A Fenro fang. The Duke froze. How could a mere child obtain such a legendary trophy? Without a word, Belle unsheathed his hammer. Lightning crackled, illuminating the room with divine fury. He admitted the hunt was slightly annoying. But the beast was finally tamed. Seeing that elemental aura, the Duke realized Belle had crushed a D-rank monster. This boy was a monster. He was more than ready for the C-rank trials. The Duke agreed under one condition: disgrace the family, and there would be no second chances. Bel accepted with icy confidence. Soon, he arrived at the bustling exam grounds. The C-rank wall broke many warriors. Naturally, the tiny boy drew mocking stares from the crowd. Seasoned veterans towered over him. Ignoring the whispers, the child walked straight to the registration desk. The attendant smirked, asking if he was lost or looking for his father. Her jaw dropped when he requested a slot. She told him to go home and play house. Bel's gaze turned cold. Suddenly, a loud voice commanded the brat to stop playing pretend. This was no place for toddlers. He should run back to his nursery. Bel sighed. Another arrogant fly was buzzing around, begging to be swatted. That man was Lennox, the reigning king of the D-rank paladins. His wind sword was legendary, capable of unleashing 8 lethal slashes in a single breath. With fans cheering, Lennox sneered. He warned the kid to match his level or leave. Bel honestly didn't care who this nobody was. Lennox mocked his lack of a weapon. Bel simply patted the sheath at his waist. A mere sheath. Lennox burst into a fit of hysterical laughter. He ridiculed the trashy equipment. The surrounding candidates joined the mocking chorus. How could a divine armament be so pathetic? They thanked the heavens they weren't him. Lennox spat that a child's suicide didn't bother him, but being in the same room felt insulting. He walked away, telling the little piece of garbage to go cry to his mother. Unfazed by the circus, Bel demanded the secretary finalize his registration immediately. She hesitated. Admission required a D-rank status and a B-rank knight's personal recommendation. Bel slid a sealed letter forward. This would solve every single problem. The secretary sighed, knowing children never secured such prestigious backing. Then she saw the seal. It was from the legendary Duke of 𝒂𝒓𝒔 himself. This kid was the Duke's heir. Silence fell as the candidates gathered in the arena. The instructor barked orders. The teleportation stone would hurl them into the dungeon abyss. They had 5 hours. Find the jewel of light or face immediate failure. With only 3 slots available, only the strongest would earn the promotion. Lennox smirked, already tasting victory. He was born to rule this dungeon. While others trembled in fear, Bel felt second-hand embarrassment for the loud-mouthed idiot. A roar of excitement erupted. The brutal examination was officially underway. Bel stepped forward. The teleportation stone began to pulse with ancient power. Blinding light engulfed him. In a heartbeat, he crossed the portal into another world. The damp air of the cave greeted him. Everyone had been scattered across the floor. Countless paths lay ahead. Time wasn't an issue. The hunt was just beginning. He wouldn't just pass. He would turn this dungeon into his personal playground. Every monster was a mana battery. The slaughter was about to begin. He unsheathed his blade, eyes burning with bloodlust. Nearby, the pathetic candidates were already gasping for air. These beasts were absolute nightmares. The lizard's murderous gaze was enough to paralyze any ordinary warrior with pure terror. Lennox scoffed, unable to comprehend how these weaklings were struggling against such bottom-tier trash. He carved through them with a sadistic smirk. The crowd watched in awe as his overwhelming power dominated the field. Smugly, he declared himself a genius far above the mediocre masses. He found the lack of challenge boring. The side characters clung to him like desperate leeches for protection. Lennox barked at them, demanding they witness the true gap between a master and mere insects. They ventured deeper until a colossal iron gate blocked their path. The final trial awaited them inside. This had to be the boss room. He hoped for at least a slight challenge today. Inside, multiple rank D horrors guarded the altar. The precious jewels glittered mockingly in the shadows. A massive beast lunged forward. Lennox stepped up, confident his blade would end this instantly. He unleashed a flurry of strikes, but the monster's hide was like indestructible steel. Not a single scratch appeared. The creature roared, launching a counterattack. For the first time, the arrogant noble felt the icy grip of panic. The impact was devastating. sending him reeling backward. His mind went numb. How could his ultimate techniques do absolutely nothing? The onlookers watched in total disbelief. Despair set in as the other monsters locked their predatory sights on the remaining group. The 𝒂𝒏𝒕 candidate scrambled to survive. He struck a beast, only to realize his physical strength was useless against its spectral form. Nearby, the female warrior was being toyed with by a skyborn predator. This aerial nightmare rained down lethal feathers, shredding everything from a safe distance. The brutal reality finally hit Lennox. These monsters were specifically evolved to nullify every one of their divine powers. Facing the stone titan, he stood helpless. He squeezed his eyes shut, awaiting his inevitable death. Sudden destruction. The beast exploded into dust before it could crush the terrified candidate. He blinked in shock. The main character, Bell, had arrived just in time to prevent a gruesome slaughter. The boy looked bored, as if he had just finished a walk. Lennox recognized him, the trash candidate from earlier. An immune-type monster charged. Bell did not flinch, already shifting his combat stance with mechanical precision. His weapon hummed, transforming instantly. Lennox's jaw dropped as the divine armament shifted its very essence. With one clean stroke, the beast was erased. Now Bell turned his gaze toward the flying menace. He summoned a ranged weapon, unleashing a storm of lead. The bird was turned into a bloody sieve midair. The witnesses were frozen. This weak boy was actually a god-tier monster in disguise. His armament was supposed to be a useless sheath. How could he possess such a diverse arsenal? His mastery over every form was flawless. Time was running out, and the protagonist decided to end this farce. Lennox could only watch from the dirt, unable to accept that a child possessed such monstrous talent. While the noble wallowed in shock, our hero cleared the entire room effortlessly. With the area secured, he walked toward the altar to claim his prize. He finally reached the jewels. The sycophants rushed over, showering him with fake praise. To Bell, their voices were nothing but buzzing flies. Their true colors bled out as they immediately began trashing the leader they once worshipped. They called Lennox absolute garbage, claiming they had always known he was a pathetic fraud compared to Bell. Lennox's soul was crushed. Meanwhile, the two traitors eyed the remaining jewels with greedy, filthy grins. Without a word, Bell summoned a massive hammer. He had his pass, but he wanted to teach these rats a lesson. He swung the hammer with earth-shattering force. The cowards screamed in horror. They could not believe what he had just done. He shattered the remaining jewels into dust. Holding the final one, he dared them to come and take it. He spat at them, calling them talentless parasites who only knew how to leech off others. People who betray their allies are lower than dogs. They were unworthy of the knight's mantle. A child's rebuke shattered their pride. Bell exited, leaving the extras drowning in silence. Lennox took those biting words to heart, reflecting on his shame. He confessed his hubris and thanked the boy, yet his fire remained unquenched. Bell was intrigued by such raw ambition. Outside, the young hero cheered his victory. Finally, a rank C knight. His mana pool had expanded into a vast sea. His next mission: conquer the household and shield his precious sister from harm. He reached the Duke's door, but a heavy air hung over the meeting. Treason brewed. 3 rank B paladins from Karma were targeting the Meldia bloodline. These holy knights had already ravaged another noble house with merciless force. Rumors claimed they wielded forbidden blades, cursed with dark, ancient enchantments. The Duke's judgment was final. This cycle of karma had to be severed immediately. Total annihilation was the goal, but the eldest son, Jin, was nowhere found. Suddenly, a youth slammed a book down. Every eye in the room froze. That organization is already dead, he claimed, slaughtered by the future Duke. Elsewhere, a maid served a cold meal to the forgotten lady, Sarah. Sarah prepared to sit at the table for another lonely dinner. She offered kindness, but the maid scoffed. Sarah's heart sank in deep isolation. Staring at the scraps, she heard a voice. Her brother had finally returned. Their eyes lit up with pure joy. She had feared the absolute worst. Belle produced magnificent gifts and a feast fit for royalty on her table. She beamed over the apple pie, wishing this moment would last forever. But reality remained grim. Servants treated concubine heirs like utter trash. He vowed to burn down this hierarchy for his sister's sake immediately. Back in the hall, the Duke marveled. Jin had soloed the Karma group. At rank A already, Jin's talent was truly on a divine level. Jin took his seat, his presence commanding the entire room's attention. A new royal decree arrived. Escort Princess Rashalane safely through the lands. The knights questioned the path. Was the royal guard truly insufficient? They needed absolute secrecy. The world couldn't know Karma was wiped out yet. As they debated the ricotta route, a new player entered the stage. "Wait," a voice rang out. Belle stood there, shocking every knight present. The Duke smiled. His youngest son's aura was unmistakably different today. He threw down his certificate. A rank C at his age, pure insanity. The Duke demanded an explanation. Belle proposed a complete tactical shift. The veterans stared in disbelief. How could a mere child speak of strategy? The safe path is a 3-day trap filled with desperate, starving bandits. "We strike through the monster plane," the boy declared with absolute confidence. It's a death trap for many, but Belle knew the Chima's weaknesses perfectly. They are night stalkers. By day, the path is a clear, safe sprint. A 3-day journey cut to one. The knight had to concede. The Duke saw a sharp, assertive mind behind those youthful eyes. Belle demanded the lead. He would protect the princess personally and safely. Silence fell as the Duke considered. Then, Jin's killing intent flared. A suffocating pressure filled the room. Why is this mutt barking at us? The very plants withered. Jin's rage was a storm of pure destruction. Belle had long outgrown his brother's terrifying aura. After surviving a century in hell, this pressure felt like a joke. Unsheathing his divine armament, he declared his absolute resolve. He swore to deliver the princess safely, no matter the cost. Amused by his insane confidence, Jin challenged the boy's strength. Did he truly believe he could stop a rancor? Belle maintained that a knight's word is absolute law. Offended, Jin's advisor barked for silence, labeling his confidence as blasphemy. This was Razor, the secretary and a high-ranking B-class paladin, a formidable wall for any ordinary warrior to climb. Seeing potential, Jin ordered Razor to test the boy's limits. He unsheathed his own weapon, ready to crush the child's delusions. It was time to discipline this low-born son once and for all. Razor advanced, but the boy stood perfectly still. Yet his senses were sharper than a blade, tracking every minute movement. The paladin lunged for the opening strike. Belle tightened his grip, sensing the immense weight of a rancor's true power. To Razor's total shock, the boy parried with flawless precision. This wasn't the movement of a mere child. Jin watched with a smirk. The boy's growth was monstrous, yet defeating a B-rank paladin should still be impossible. The Duke's voice boomed, ending the duel instantly. He officially assigned Belle the princess's high-stakes escort mission. Razor froze in pure disbelief. Was the Duke truly entrusting this crucial task to a mere child? With Karma eradicated by Jin's hand, this mission would serve as a brutal baptism by fire for the boy. Belle bowed, swearing to succeed. Behind him, Jin's twisted smile hinted at a much darker scheme in motion. Destination, the royal palace. For the first time in his life, Belle would step into the kingdom's heart. At the massive gates, steel blocked his path. The guards sneered, refusing entry to an unescorted child. Calmly, Belle revealed his paladin certificate. He announced his duty, the protection of the crown princess herself. Stunned, the guards stared at his C-rank status. How could a boy this young possess such overwhelming authority? Whispers of doubt followed him, but Belle didn't flinch. His resolve was forged in the fires of suffering. The royal carriage stopped. Princess Iris looked at him, calling him cute before coldly dismissing his protection as unnecessary. From his high throne, the king demanded to know if his daughter had finally begun her journey. "She is on the road, sire," the servant bowed, escorted by elite guards and the Duke's youngest son. The king frowned. Rumors said this Belle was nothing more than a fragile, talentless child. Fearing hidden potential, the king ordered caution. He authorized the use of their secret weapon should the boy interfere. Hidden blades gleamed. The assassin whispered that a child would never notice the cold touch of death. As the carriage rolled on, an uneasy silence filled the space between the princess and her young guardian. This mission was the key. Success meant finally having the power to protect his beloved sister from their family. But the atmosphere inside was thick with hostility. It was clear Belle was far from a welcome guest. Breaking the silence, Belle asked why she doubted him. Why reject the protection of a sworn paladin? She stared out the window, stating coldly that she loathed relying on anyone but herself. Her own divine armament glowed faintly. Belle realized her pride was even more towering than her royal title. Watching the commoners outside, a flicker of longing crossed her face, a world she was never allowed to touch. Her eyes sparkled at the simple sights, but when she caught Belle watching, her defensive walls immediately shot back. He apologized softly, noting that her wonder reminded him of his own precious little sister. She would have loved this view too, he smiled. Surprised, the princess asked if they truly shared a bond. Belle shared stories of their simple games. Pure, untainted moments in a world filled with constant, bloody power struggles. "I have many siblings," she whispered, "but trust is a luxury I cannot afford." Succession had poisoned her heart. Sympathy filled Belle's heart. He knew that pain all too well. His own household was a nest of vipers. Persecuted for his bloodline and without a mother's protection, he had survived the abyss all alone. Her interest piqued. Belle offered a rare alliance, a shoulder to lean on in this cruel, royal game. But she scoffed. Dependency was a weakness she refused to show, especially to someone like him. She barked that he knew nothing of her life. Meanwhile, from the shadows of the forest, hungry eyes watched. Darkness blanketed the road. They reached the outpost exactly as the sun dipped below the horizon. Exhaustion weighed heavy on the princess. As the gates opened, a mysterious figure awaited. Who was this stranger? Sir Peter, a high knight of the realm, stepped forward with a fake smile to welcome the royal party. Belle felt a sharp prickle of familiarity at his name, yet the memory remained locked behind a foggy veil. Oddly, they were met outside the city gates, a perfect killing field where hidden assassins waited with daggers drawn. The main character sensed the trap immediately. The surrounding guards were far too tense for a simple welcome ceremony. Suddenly, a blade whistled through the air. Outside the fortress walls, the princess was nothing more than a target. The boy's instincts flared as he summoned his divine armament, shielding the royal from the lethal projectile in seconds. Assassins struck from every corner. A hail of poisoned daggers rained down, threatening to overwhelm the princess's entire guard. Peter leaped into action, his blade dancing through the air to deflect the incoming steel with practiced, veteran ease. Belle analyzed his speed, marking him as a rank B warrior as the failed assassins retreated into the gloom. The initial trap had failed. Peter barked orders for a pursuit while personally escorting the princess into the castle. Belle remained behind, watching them go with a cold dread pooling in her stomach as she felt something off. Deep within the stone walls, they whispered she was safe, though the princess insisted her own strength was enough. In a heartbeat, the atmosphere turned cold as a guard's throat was sprayed crimson before he could blink. Terror paralyzed the princess as her protector fell. The man holding the bloody sword was none other than Peter. The snake had finally shed its skin. Beside her stood a monster, and the guard's sacrifice was completely wasted. Fate had twisted into a nightmare. Peter leaned in, his voice a deathly rasp, promising her end was near. Her previous bravado shattered like glass. Faced with a true predator, the princess found herself utterly helpless and trembling. He closed the distance, his bloodlust suffocating. Her hands shook so violently she couldn't even manifest her holy weapon. A twisted grin split Peter's face. Just as despair took hold, the room's window exploded into 1,000 shards. Peter recoiled in shock. One of his elite men lay dead, silenced by the very boy he ignored earlier. Of all the people to interfere, he never expected the small boy to be the one to stand tall. "Sorry for the delay," the boy remarked casually, stepping through the broken glass with the calm of a god. Locking eyes with the terrified girl, he declared that from this point on, the job was his sole responsibility. Peter laughed, convinced his distraction outside had worked. He couldn't fathom a mere brat posing a threat to him. Suddenly, the protagonist remembered this villain. This wasn't Peter, it was the infamous butcher, Von Wiggle, from his past. The knight froze in shock. How could a child know his forbidden name or the secrets of his armament? His power relied on 3 thunder dice, a lethal combo that had already claimed the lives of countless noble counts. The villain demanded answers, unaware that after 100 years of suffering, the boy knew his every dark secret. In his past life, the protagonist was the one who brought him to justice after years of hellish training. Destiny had come full circle. Though just a child, the boy radiated a killing intent that made Peter shiver. Despite his nerves, Peter sneered. No mere child could ever hope to bridge the gap against a rank B paladin. For any normal warrior, this would be an insurmountable mountain and a one-way trip to a painful grave. But against an opponent like Peter, the boy knew he wouldn't face even a single moment of difficulty. Enraged by the boy's mockery, the traitor roared that he would tear that brat into 1,000 bloody pieces. The boy didn't flinch. He already predicted the opening volley of daggers before Peter's hand had even moved. He danced through the storm of steel with effortless grace, anticipating the desperate diagonal slash that followed. Peter's eyes widened in disbelief. Every single strike, honed through years of murder, met nothing but empty, mocking air. The boy sensed the frantic rear attack. His own hand was already glowing, summoning his power to counter perfectly. Clang! Steel clashed as the boy blocked the surprise attack without even turning his head to look back. Peter's mind fractured. How could this human trash match his speed? Bell knew the boy could end him instantly. "Surrender now if you value your life," he offered, but the villain's pride had already morphed into blind fury. Peter's attacks became wild and predictable, fueled by a desperation that the protagonist exploited with cold, calculated precision. A whirlwind of strikes followed, yet none could graze the child who had mastered the art of war. The princess watched in awe. A small child was dismantling a legendary assassin as if it were child's play. He silenced every single strike. The princess realized that, in reality, she had been far too arrogant before. Her ring flared with light. Losing his cool, the protagonist vowed to end this farce now. The opening strike hit home. Peter gasped as blood spilled from a fresh wound. He needed a new plan. Every single movement was being anticipated perfectly. The boss's warning was right. This boy's talent is nothing short of monstrous. Forced into a corner, he played his ace. The protagonist saw it all coming. A light barrier rose. "I'll shatter this easily," the hero smirked, completely unfazed. "Arrogant brat," Peter hissed, reaching for a mysterious and rare small vial. The protagonist froze in shock. Those were the legendary tears of the Dragon King. He smashed them down. Rare mana surged, multiplying his power to terrifying levels. Peter growled, promising to make the boy regret his reckless overconfidence. He hurled his daggers again, but this time their aura was absolutely lethal. Glowing blades circled him, freezing midair like a cage of cold steel. Peter grinned. Victory was finally within reach with the boy trapped in light. Magnetic forces lifted him upward. The princess watched her guard in pure terror. He raised his shield, pouring every ounce of power into crushing the barrier. The wind wasn't enough. Peter's true hidden power was only just beginning. Daggers crackled with lightning. Pure energy flooded through the entire light cage. The boy screamed in agony. Peter decided to end this stage quickly. Consciousness fading, arrows suddenly rained down from across the dark room. They shattered the daggers, destroying the barrier. Peter stood there, totally paralyzed. The princess had unleashed her divine armament. Her paladin was risking everything. Her fear vanished. This sudden intervention sent Peter into a murderous rage. He lunged for the kill. That tiny opening was all the protagonist needed. The assassin realized his doom too late. A devastating blow tore through him. One strike finished it. Peter collapsed motionless. Belle had claimed the victory. Recovered, he checked on her. With sorrowful eyes, she remained hauntingly silent. Touching his face, she whispered that he was the only one bleeding here. "I'm sorry," she sighed. "You were caught in our family's succession war." "It's fine," he smiled. The princess was every bit as strong as claimed. "I'm weak," she replied, vowing to always stand up for him. Dropping to one knee, the boy expressed deep gratitude for her timely help. With admiration, she slid off her ring. She insisted he keep the relic. A token of eternal friendship. This was no ordinary piece of jewelry. Mission complete. Without a single casualty, he stood before the powerful Duke. Belle reported the success. However, the Duke sensed a much deeper secret. Glinting on the boy's finger sat the legendary and ancient Solomon's ring. A royal treasure of infinite mana, given only as a sign of trust. It was absolutely unbelievable that a commoner could obtain such a divine relic. He's a total monster. The Duke couldn't hide his wicked sense of satisfaction. "You enter Athens Academy immediately." The elite paladin school finally awaited him. Only high nobles entered. His kin were usually only taught by private tutors. Tradition was clear. Only the chosen successors ever attended that prestigious academy. He was now an official heir candidate. "Continue training until you are notified." The boy spoke up. His father turned, intrigued by his son's sudden request. Standing tall, he made his bold demand. Suddenly, the great doors swung wide. Sister's joy radiates as she enters her plush new chambers, a far cry from our past. The Duke himself mandated this move. Living in the main estate commands instant authority. Pure, unadulterated joy sparkles in her eyes. She finally feels safe. She spots a fresh gash on my palm, a mere scratch from my last mission. Though she frets, her laughter heals me. It is the ultimate comfort. Sarah is secure. Now I must prepare for the apocalypse 5 years away. To protect her, I must unmask the villains orchestrating this inevitable tragedy. To win, I must seize the airship. Meanwhile, Jin's shadow begins to move. The servant waits in silence, as Jin remains obsessed with his sinister masterpiece. The report is in. The bastard enters Athena Academy. He must be liquidated. Jin dismisses the threat. His little brother is just a temporary plaything. Growth is required. After all, Jin cherishes a very specific kind of destruction. A true monster, Jin lives to crush spirits once they reach full bloom. Even following orders, this gamble feels like walking on a razor's edge. Armed with divine relics, the boy already toppled a level B ranker. Calculated moves are necessary. This threat must be neutralized before it evolves. While Belle trains, I must awaken my hidden potential before the academy opens. Countless kills are required. Suddenly, a reflection in my blade reveals a tale. Stay sharp. Every shadow in this mansion hides a potential assassin. The servant approaches with eerie politeness. Something feels dangerously out of place. I demand his business. Surprisingly, he bows in apology for his past insolence. He admits pointing steel at a duke's heir was a fatal mistake. I play the merciful lord, accepting his apology while keeping my guard up. But the conversation isn't over. He has one more sinister proposal. Blade drawn, he invites me to a subjugation mission, an obvious trap. Jin is plotting elsewhere, yet this man claims he wants to assist me. Refusing a duke's request is impossible. I must walk into this lion's den. I accept. The servant smirks, already imagining my corpse in the dirt. The destination, a place where screams go unheard. The desolate region of Ika. I know its dark secrets all too well. Ambrosia resides there, a legendary treasure that permanently skyrockets one's mana capacity. The wheels turn toward the slaughter. The hunt has officially begun. Monsters to slay and ambrosia to claim. My path to power starts now. Chances are slim, but I know the location of a secret, hidden dungeon. It appears near Etha. As night falls, we seek shelter before the storm. The mission is clear. Exterminate the leviathans infesting these waters. Reports confirm a swarm of level C beasts, easy prey for my growth. We strike at dawn. I retreat to my quarters to finalize my strategy. Shadows watch my every move. They think I'm walking blindly into their trap. They'll stage an accident. A level C novice stands no chance, or so they think. Razor is already in a deep slumber, the perfect time for my move. Using wind magic, I modify my shield into a secret, high-speed flight platform. I soar toward the monster forest, seeking the dungeon lost to history. My master's secret discovery awaits. My feet finally touch the cursed soil. The artifact fades. Before me lies the entrance to true, legendary power. Deep within the shadows, he finds it. A massive gate pulsating with raw energy. Hidden dungeons never lie about tier. Blue means rank, A green is rank. Be completing these trials is the only way forward. Divine ambrosia awaits the victor, pure essence to fuel his growth. He steps into the abyss without hesitation. He must slay the dungeon's ultimate boss. In his past life, he was a mere rank D weakling. Master warned him of the danger, but now, fear is a luxury. His hand touches the cold barrier. He crosses over. To protect everything, he must become an absolute god. The air grows heavy. First contact. This fodder isn't even worth his time. The phantom knight lunges. Its blade is a blur of steel and malice. It strikes with lethal precision. He dances through the chaos, defending with ease. Suddenly, he spots a fatal flaw in its stance. He strikes the opening, a direct hit, yet the monster doesn't even flinch. The impact sends him flying. He needs more weight. He summons the heavy hammer of destruction. He swings with all his might. Crack, but the armor remains completely unbroken. Blades and hammers are useless. He needs a new plan. His sword begins to glow with arcane fire. Magic surges through his blade. He strikes. Again, the defense holds firm. He is only rank C. The pressure is mounting. The phantom knight is relentless in its assault. Trapped in a corner, he needs a miracle strategy immediately. Every shield has a crack. He searches. He finds it. A hidden vulnerability in the mana flow. A mana-infused bullet. He loads the fire spitter for one final gambit. Charging, the knight charges toward him. Death is only 2 seconds away. Closer, closer. The monster's blade is inches from his throat. Target locked. Full charge. He pulls the trigger. The armor finally shatters under the pressure. The shell breaks. The phantom falls. The hallway falls silent at last. The recoil nearly breaks his arm. He gasps for air. Magic was the key all along. Without his divine arsenal, he would be a corpse. He must push further into the dark. The boss will be a nightmare, a true hidden dungeon challenge. High risk, high reward, a rare potion. It restores his stamina and mana instantly. He drinks the elixir, strength returns, the hunt continues. He tears through the remaining guards. Finally, the great gate looms before him, the ultimate enemy. Demon or serpent, it does not matter. Only one of them is walking out alive. The doors creak open, an arena of death. A massive shadow materializes into a knight. His instincts scream. His body trembles before the sheer power. The pressure is suffocating. Glowing scarlet eyes pierce through the darkness like a demon's gaze. The boss approaches, a mountain of steel. The final battle begins right here. Focus, do not blink. The phantom raises its massive blade. A split-second reaction. Move now or lose your head. The air itself begins to scream. A shockwave of pure destruction erupts. He barely escapes the impact. One hit means instant death. He has to stay mobile. The creature pivots. He leaps into the air. He summons his sword for a counterattack. He strikes the back. Clang. The armor is a fortress of reinforced steel. Even his best blade cannot dent this monster's defense. No time to breathe. He must dodge. He readies the fire spitter once more. This is his trump card. He will overcharge the weapon this time. 5 seconds. The longest 5 seconds of his entire life. Fire. The blast roars toward the Phantom Knight with devastating force. Direct hit, the smoke clears. To his horror, the monster is completely unharmed. A strange sigil glowed on the Phantom's chest. Its magic defense was absolute. Once more, the boy was cornered. Only his desperate agility saved him. Realizing he needed more defense, he finally raised his shield. The shield held against a direct strike, but that sheer destructive force was terrifyingly high. Hands trembling, he sensed a shift. The Phantom Knight was altering its lethal attack pattern. Death rained from above. A fatal strike descended, and Belle had to move instantly to survive. The Black Knight's blade hit the earth, shattering the very foundation of the arena. Dust billowed, masking his escape. Emerging from the haze, the boy put distance between them. His mana was too low to pierce that steel. Then, through the dust, a sinister glow formed. Instinct screamed of danger. The creature hurled its sword. He braced behind his shield to live. The blade ricocheted away into the dark, but the boy knew the onslaught was not over. That throw was a mere feint. The true killing blow came from behind. He was helpless. Agony tore through him upon impact. He lay broken as the beast loomed over its prey. It moved to stomp out his life. Despite the pain, Belle rolled away. An elixir saved him from death's door just in time. His resources were spent. Meanwhile, the monster had already reclaimed its cursed, heavy blade. Faced with certain death, he chose to gamble. The heavy shield was his last hope. A desperate plan formed. He would launch it with the fury of wind magic. His shield transformed into a weapon. It was now the deadliest projectile in his arsenal. The plan failed. The Phantom Knight dodged easily, leaving the boy completely unarmed and vulnerable. Nothing stood between him and that cold blade. Cornered, he couldn't dodge. Without his shield, he had to force the trajectory to change. Defying logic, the shield struck home. That split second allowed him to evade the blade. Belle seized the opening and charged. It was time to switch his combat tactics. He swung his hammer with everything. The Phantom Knight took the full, devastating impact. The creature fell, defeated. Belle stood panting after that grueling, hellish struggle. The gamble had paid off. Now, he just had to finish the thing inside. But he was too slow. The knight rose once more, refusing to stay dead. The battle raged on. Its armor shattered, revealing a form the boy couldn't comprehend. The monster reached for a hidden latch on its sword's hilt. It pulled a new, locked weapon from the sheath. The true sword remained hidden. The secret was out. A new enemy stood before him, one he never expected. The creature's speed exploded. Belle was slammed against the wall by the violent blitz. Unbearable pain flooded his senses. As he hit the floor, his strength finally vanished. The monster closed in. His vision blurred as the dungeon boss prepared the finish. Fading and weak. He forced himself up. Staying down meant death. He struggled just to lift his gaze. The slash came, but he parried. Using the gauntlet, he finally turned the tide. The monster wavered in confusion. Suddenly, the boy summoned his own blade to strike. He finally took the lead. The real war began as they traded thunderous blows. Their speeds accelerated wildly. The entire arena became a blur of steel and sparks. Unarmored, the monster was faster. Yet, the gauntlet's power made the protagonist even deadlier. He would end this now. The mark on the monster's skin shifted colors. It burned a bloody red. His sword sliced through what was only a mirage. He'd missed. He pivoted desperately to block an attack he could barely perceive. The crimson glow granted impossible speed. Once again, the protagonist was on the ropes. He refused to stay down, but winning meant risking his life for forbidden power. That rush of raw strength felt absolutely intoxicating. A demon appeared. The cursed gauntlet demanded his soul as a dark payment. He was ready to sign the pact as a chaotic aura consumed him. His existence flickered. The entity warned him that only power mattered now. Weakness was his only sin. It was why he'd always been crushed. Fragility cost him his first life. He was sick of being weak. Now he'd take what he wanted. His self-control began to fracture. The beast moved to kill, unaware its prey had already evolved. He now rivaled the creature. Their blades clashed with a devastating shockwave. Only one thing drove him now, a primal hunger for total destruction. Victory wasn't enough. He wanted to erase this obstacle from existence. But a memory of his sister pulled him back from the abyss. Belle was still out there, risking everything against the monstrous nightmare. He couldn't pay with his soul. His beloved sister was still waiting. His true motivation wasn't bloodlust, it was the desperate need to protect her. Reclaiming his mind, he prepared to strip the beast of its power. 𝒀𝒂𝒓𝒔 was absolute. He sent the dungeon lord reeling with one strike. The shadow tempted him again, demanding his soul for godlike strength. Though he hesitated, the boy lunged forward as the creature also advanced. Both unleashed massive strikes, engaging in a blinding, high-speed battle. The beast launched mana, but the boy's speed was already light years ahead. With a flash, he disarmed the monster, severing its limb instantly. Seeing the opening, he delivered a strike that cleaved the beast in two. The nightmare was over. Against all odds, Belle stood as the victor. Energy coursed through him as the monster's carcass dissolved into dust. The trial ended. Finally, he could discard that soul-eating, cursed gauntlet. He'd almost lost himself. He had to avoid that gauntlet at all costs. Then he saw it, the legendary vial of shimmering ambrosia. One sip would grant him rank B mana and unlock his divine abilities. He'd never seen the elixir before, and a hint of concern lingered. But for a better future, he swallowed the liquid essence in one gulp. His mana veins exploded. He had ascended to rank B instantly. Then came the agony. It felt like liquid fire was burning his chest. Suddenly, the sheath on his waist radiated a blinding, ethereal glow. He collapsed unconscious, waking up inside a massive, glowing magic circle. He gasped for air, realizing he'd been teleported to a strange dimension. A familiar voice welcomed him. It was his long-lost master. Despite the hood, he recognized that aura. His master had finally returned. Other legends were there too, a hammer-wielding girl and a stoic knight. They welcomed him warmly into their mysterious, hidden sanctuary. For the first time, he realized he'd entered the dimension of souls. Master Rig was visibly moved. Their emotional reunion felt like a miracle. This was the original bearer of 𝒀𝒆𝒏𝒕's shield and the creator of Avalon. He was grateful, yet confused. How could Master remember him after the regression? The Master's gaze transcended time. He witnessed every moment of his disciples' tragic death and miraculous rebirth. The boy's heart raced with curiosity. This mysterious realm existed deep within the legendary soul-bound weapon, Avalon. It was a celestial sanctuary, where god-tier armaments rested alongside the spirits of their legendary past wielders. Confusion clouded the boy's mind. His master's physical body, likely decaying in some forgotten, desolate mountain range. Avalon was no mere blade. It was a divine relic that tethered souls across the infinite river of time. Although the bond breaks, a bearer's consciousness remains eternally linked to their mortal coil beyond the veil. Did this weapon send me back? The boy wondered, but his master's eyes held a shadow of doubt. Even a legend has limits. Such a miracle was beyond any power the master had ever witnessed before. Answers were scarce, but warmth remained. You fought well, my boy. You kept your sister safe. A simple nod of pride, the ultimate validation for a warrior who had endured 100 years of hell. Flushing with humble pride, the boy sought the truth. Why was he summoned to this celestial plane now? Suddenly, the air shifted. A restless soul broke the silence, tired of the long-winded emotional reunion. Meet Raven, the explosive wielder of the fire spitters. The master's aura flared. He wasn't finished speaking yet. Lighten up, old man, Raven teased. You're acting stiffer than a high-rank stone golem from the abyss. The boy stood frozen, completely lost as the legendary sixth successor's identity was finally revealed before him. He reached out in respect, only to realize he'd been played. A phantom joke from a legendary hero. This man was a carefree spirit, a jarring contrast to the bloody, serious path of a true high-ranker. Raven's laughter echoed through the void. To him, the legendary successor looked like a wide-eyed, naive novice. Then came Charlotte. Her voice cut through the noise, noting the boy's struggle to adapt to this realm. Raven sought backup from Haru, but the young man was buried under a mountain of extreme social anxiety. The fourth successor's only wish: silence. Charlotte sighed, tired of Raven's relentless and annoying teasing antics. "Stop scowling, Charlotte, you'll get wrinkles," Raven joked. Charlotte's murderous intent spiked instantly in response. The master tried to mediate the chaos, but these legendary heroes were acting like a dysfunctional circus troupe. It was surreal for the boy, seeing his stern master acting so human among these ancient, powerful legends. But make no mistake, these weren't just ghosts. They were the apex predators of history now watching him. Slayers of evil and protectors of realms. Suddenly, a cold voice commanded, "Enough, get to the point." Adam, the first successor, spoke. The mood shifted. They hadn't summoned the boy for a friendly chat. The truth was heavy. The sixth successor had to master the true essence of his divine arms immediately. His heart sank. When fully awakened, these god-tier weapons radiate enough mana to level an entire kingdom. Unlocking that power now was suicide. His mortal frame would shatter under the sheer, overwhelming pressure. Wait for my body to mature. Impossible. In this cruel world, he had no time to waste. He needed that godlike strength today. For his sister's sake, he would burn his very soul if necessary. Seeing his unwavering resolve, Adam moved. "Then I'll crush you myself." He was a blur of lethal speed. The boy's instincts screamed. Before he could even blink, Adam was already standing directly at his back. Thwack, the blunt blade struck home. But wait, did this immature boy actually manage to parry that strike? Adam paused, his eyes narrowing. His calculation was off. This boy wasn't just another novice, he was special. His previous battles had forged him in fire. Perhaps he was finally ready to tame the divine steel. Tension filled the air. Had he finally earned the respect of the strongest man in human history? "Very well," Adam confirmed. "Focus on a single path and you might just survive the awakening process." Permission granted. The B-level seals shattered. The true power of the sword was now his to command. "I'll unlock them all right now." The boy's determination shook the very foundations of the Avalon dimension. Adam smirked at the kid's guts, while the comedian wished the new number 6 the best of luck. They all saw it, the burning desire to protect. Even the silent Haru felt the boy's incredible resolve. "We'll be watching from the shadows." The vision faded as his consciousness surged back into the dungeon. The agony was gone. Instead, a strange, monstrous power was now thrumming through his very veins. The legendary blade thrummed, its hidden power itching to devour the approaching beasts. The vessel sliced through the dark waters, deep into the heart of the abyss. The youth sensed them, leviathans rising from the depths. It was time to draw steel. Unbeknownst to him, a web of treachery tightened. Even the humblest barber was a viper. Suspicion gnawed at him. Why send a high-tier B-rank knight after mere sea trash? Something was wrong. Why the help? A deadly trap was clearly being set. A sneak attack would be fatal. He didn't dare blink, tracking every suspicious movement. They neared the kill zone, yet the ocean remained eerily, unnervingly silent. The boy sliced his own arm, the scent of blood intended to lure the monsters. Fresh blood clouded the water, a crimson beacon to drive the beasts into madness. The surface broke. The first monstrosity had arrived to claim its feast. Suddenly, dozens emerged, a swarm far deadlier than the intelligence reports had suggested. He suggested dividing their forces, yet his instincts screamed not to leave the boy. The mask finally shattered. "You aren't leaving this ocean alive," the traitor hissed. Battle erupted. A whip lashed out, snaring his leg in a vice-like grip. Caught in a deadly bind, he realized the simple boatman was actually a master assassin. The hood fell, revealing a face of pure malice as the whip tightened further. It was Spencer. "Do it now," the traitor barked, triggering the final phase. With a roar, Spencer hoisted him up, the protagonist's leg encased in jagged ice. Frigg plummeted into the abyss, while Spencer's frost magic expanded, sealing his watery grave. The massive glacier blocked any hope of him reaching the surface again. Defying nature, the ice dragged him down to be devoured by the hungry swarm. Left for dead in the crushing depths, his lungs burned. He needed air now. He gripped his shield, channeling wind force to propel himself through the crushing weight. Sinking ice was impossible, but his mana conjured a desperate pocket of oxygen. Breathing within the shield's core, he processed the bitter sting of their joint betrayal. He'd watched Razor like a hawk, but never anticipated a second hidden viper. Above was a ceiling of ice. Below, a legion of hungry predators closed in. First, the leg. He unleashed his shield's power to shatter the icy shackle. He broke free, but the cursed whip had already shredded the flesh of his ankle. The scent of his blood drove the beasts wild. It was time to summon Caliburn. Outnumbered and wounded. Perfect. This would be the ultimate training session under pressure. His first true test since returning. Now, the world would witness his new divine power. Caliburn ignited. A blinding beam of pure mana vaporized the first beast in seconds. Brilliant blades of light manifested in the dark water, carving through the entire swarm. The Starblade formation was back. Finally, the hunter had become the absolute predator. Monsters charged from all sides, only to be impaled by the relentless dancing blades. The sea ran red. Behold the terrifying, true majesty of the legendary sword Caliburn. Ethereal blades swarmed like hornets, ensuring every last creature was utterly annihilated. Up top, the traders struggled against the horde, using the ice as their battlefield. 5 minutes had passed. Surely, the boy was now just fish food in the abyss. Spencer grinned. Razor's tactical genius had simplified their problem quite beautifully. Slaughtering the remaining beasts, Razor proved his power was on a whole different dimension. Join me or die, he mused, certain the boy's usefulness had finally reached its end. But as he gloated, a terrifying fracture groaned through the ice beneath his feet. Cracks webbed the ice. As he investigated, a sudden ambush erupted from the deep, stunning the veteran paladin. A void opened in the frozen waste. A gargantuan monstrosity rose from the abyss, ready to feast. A colossal tentacle breached the surface like a titan's whip, shattering the silence. He had to move. This B-rank nightmare usually required a whole squad of elite paladins to survive. One mistake meant death, but this beast was more than just muscle, it was a tactical predator. Lethal projectiles rained down, yet the knight managed to dance through the storm of death. Now the tentacles closed in. One touch, and he would be dragged into the freezing abyss forever. Speed was his only hope. Every second wasted brought him closer to a cold, watery grave. Activating his divine armament, he flooded his blade with mana for a strike of absolute destruction. Simple yet devastating power. He banked everything on a single blow to end this nightmare instantly. But the beast was cunning. The knight's ultimate strike hit, but the result was a total disaster. The creature used a meat shield, negating his trump card and leaving him completely vulnerable. The tables had turned. The proud hunter was now nothing more than desperate, cornered prey. Facing an enraged B-rank horror, he scrambled back to the boat, his life hanging by a thread. The ice was gone. Without a foothold, reaching the beast was now a suicidal, impossible dream. Worse, monsters swarmed the vessel, determined to tear every human limb from limb in a frenzy. Distracted by the swarm, a tentacle slammed into his face with bone-shattering, brutal force. His gear wasn't built for a massacre, and the terrain was a total, lethal nightmare. Nowhere to run, he watched in horror as the abyss gathered its dark, overwhelming forces. Death was certain, but then, from the freezing depths, the protagonist emerged like a vengeful god. The boy they thought had perished. Bel had returned from the grave with terrifying power. Flying atop his shield, he carved through the swarm. The betrayers were absolutely speechless at the sight. How did he survive the impossible? Despite the betrayal, he wasn't going to let them die yet. Razor was unconvinced. This was a B-rank calamity. No boy could bridge that legendary power gap. But the protagonist didn't flinch. As the tentacles lunged, he prepared to unleash his hidden strength. Activating Caliburn's true form, a blizzard of blades intercepted every strike with surgical, godly precision. Razor's jaw dropped. The boy had already mastered the weapon's ultimate hidden technique in record time. Such mastery was unheard of. Bell declared he'd turn this sea demon into nothing but fish food. The beast roared, unleashing water cannons. Bell remained a pillar of absolute, unshakable calm. The boat was seconds from vaporizing, but Bell was ready to reveal his true, overwhelming power. The light blades shifted, merging into the original hilt in a blinding flash of divine energy. The swords fused into a legendary beam of light, a weapon of absolute judgment and destruction. The two powers collided in a spectacular explosion, but Bell's determination was simply unbreakable. The beam tore through the monster. He soared past, slicing through the beast's very soul. The B-rank nightmare was over. Sliced perfectly in half, it vanished into the dark, silent abyss. Shockwaves hit the crew. How could a supposed weakling achieve such monstrous, god-tier power? Back on deck, the reckoning began. Spencer was next, time to pay for the betrayal in blood. A terrifying problem had arisen. Yet, the paladin's pride still blinded him to the new reality. He spat out insults, claiming a bastard could never match a B-rank paladin's true might. The protagonist smiled. It was amusing that this man still thought he had a chance at victory. Intimidation radiated from Bell like a physical weight as the two knights prepared for the final clash. Steel met steel in a thunderous shockwave that shook the very air around the ship. At first, it looked even, but the paladin's raw physical strength began to push Bell back. In a contest of pure muscle, the veteran seemed to hold the superior, crushing advantage. He thought he'd won, but Bell was just beginning to unleash his sword's legendary true abilities. As a shimmering blade of light lunged forward, he sensed its lethal intent and felt a chill of genuine dread. Against a solitary projectile, he remained confident that his defenses would hold firm against such a simple strike. But it was a calculated trap. Razor unleashed his divine armament, obliterating the light blade into a shower of sparks. Piece by piece, the glowing remnants of the attack flickered and dissolved into the cold morning air. He sneered, certain the boy's steel would never touch him. For now, their lethal exchange seemed perfectly balanced. Taking down a B-rank paladin was no small feat. The boy's mana was evaporating rapidly under the weight of his skills. With only one sword remaining, the seasoned knight realized the youth's ultimate technique was draining his very life force. Seizing the moment, he surged forward with savage intent, desperate to bring this bloody duel to a close. His opening gambit missed its mark, but the brutal follow-up strike slammed directly into the boy's chest. That young, unrefined body buckled under the massive impact. The sheer gap in physical power was becoming a death sentence. He could end this slowly, yet a primal fear of the creeping darkness urged him to finish it immediately. Retreating from the danger of close combat, he unleashed a hail of fire, but the boy dodged every single shot. The youth tried to seize that opening, but his movements were far too sluggish to bypass a master's guard. However, he failed to account for the one variable that defies all logic and common sense. Using the projectile's force to accelerate, the boy's blade nearly took his head, leaving only a trail of boiling rage. Watching his opponent's composure shatter into pure fury, the boy knew his psychological trap had finally snapped shut. Caught completely off guard, a hidden blade of light suddenly materialized and impaled the knight through his back. It was a move he never foresaw. With a wound that devastating, his ability to sustain the fight vanished instantly. Realizing he had underestimated the boy's tactical genius, the youth approached his fallen foe with an eerie, calm silence. He delivered a final warning. It was over. He urged the knight to abandon his pride and surrender. But surrender was a foreign concept. He viewed this boy as a catastrophic threat to his master Jin's future. For the sake of his lord, this young monster had to be eliminated right here, at any cost. Faced with such stubbornness, the boy wondered what sparked this loyalty. Deep within the knight's mind, ancient memories stirred. He remembered a past battlefield where he lay broken and dying, his strength entirely spent, and his path ended. A mysterious figure had approached his shattered frame, standing tall over his near-lifeless body in the dirt. Expecting a mercenary to deliver the final blow, he mustered his last bit of strength to face his executioner. Instead, the young man uncorked a small vial, pouring a shimmering liquid over his horrific, bleeding wounds. "This is your lucky day," the man said. "From now on, I am your master." That debt of life became his soul. Jin had given him a second chance, and he was determined to repay that mercy with absolute, unwavering devotion. Ignoring his own safety, he shattered the boy's light blade, watching the broken fragments fall uselessly to the ground. He saw the boy wasn't a mere thug, but a warrior whose resolve rivaled his own knightly code of honor. The time for games had ended. Both warriors prepared to unleash their full, devastating power for the final clash. But Bell recognized that high-tier ability. It was lethal, but its long casting time was a weakness he would exploit. The boy lunged onto the offensive, but as he closed the distance, a sudden, blurred movement stopped him cold. A brutal knee strike crushed his ribs. He had fallen for a masterful feint and was now facing total defeat. Staggering back, he snarled that the fight wasn't over. He still held one final, hidden card up his sleeve. A lingering fragment of the shattered sword suddenly tore through his opponent's back, leaving the paladin completely paralyzed. The knight was certain he had destroyed every blade. It was a tragic mistake that would cost him everything. The boy had only feigned their destruction, weaving a complex web of illusions to secure his ultimate victory. It was as if the boy possessed the combat experience of 1,000 wars. It defied all rational explanation. Without that final trump card, he would have lost. Against all odds, he had defeated a B-rank paladin. His power was growing exactly as he'd calculated. Meanwhile, their vessel finally reached the shores of the great continent. Sarah searched desperately near the castle, her eyes scanning every face for her beloved, long-lost brother. The boy was nowhere to be found. She stood alone, wrestling with the terrifying thought that he might never return. The mission he had set out to achieve should have been long finished, yet the silence remained unbroken. Her eyes caught the open library doors. Seeking her brother, she entered, only to meet a terrifying presence. Jin blocked her path. Despite being siblings, his aura felt murderous. Terror gripped her soul, yet she had to greet him. Words failed as his predatory gaze paralyzed her with absolute fear. He spat worthless while passing. Stumbling, she bumped into someone behind. It was her brother, demanding to know Jin's business with Sarah. Silence was Jin's response. Sarah rejoiced seeing her brother returned safely. But he was wounded by a rank B paladin named Razor. Even then, Jin remained unfazed, his expression cold and mocking. Bell noted the failed trap. Jin dismissed them as mere pebbles. To him, his own sister was just another insignificant stone. He walked away, but the main character, MC, had one final word. He vowed to succeed the Duke, calling Jin a failed protector. Jin turned, unleashing a murderous intent that suffocated the entire room. A monstrous aura erupted, but Bell stood firm against the pressure. A twisted smile formed on Jin's face before he laughed aloud. "Perhaps these pebbles are worth watching after all," he chuckled. Leaving the library, he challenged his brother to try killing him. Sarah trembled, but the main character calmed her. That pressure was surreal. The power gap between them was as vast as the heavens. Bell knew he must transcend his limits before the academy graduation. Bags packed, the Duke watched as the boy prepared his departure. He thanked his father. Academy rules required a personal bodyguard escort. The Duke assigned a rank B paladin to serve the boy. Bell had a request, and the Duke allowed him to speak. Suddenly, Sarah appeared, packed and ready with a determined look. His request was simple: let his sister accompany him on this journey. The Duke questioned his motives, refusing to let her play around. This was no playground. The academy only permitted true warriors. Sarah pleaded, but her father's command was absolute and final. Let her be my bodyguard. Together, we can crush rank A paladins. Amused by the boy's audacity, the Duke finally gave his blessing. Their carriage raced toward the academy as Sarah marveled at the world. They reached the magnificent gates. Sarah beamed with pride for him. At this noble school, he instructed Sarah to stay in their room. Settling in was interrupted by the sight of students clashing fiercely. A sparring match. Sarah watched, mesmerized by the display of power. To the main character, these warriors were merely rank D weaklings. One stood out, but at rank C, he was no threat. The duel narrowed to 2. Victory seemed within his opponent's grasp. He charged desperately, but the young man didn't even flinch. Sarah gasped, fearing a fatal strike was about to land. With one effortless strike, the enemy fell. No divine weapon needed. A rank B- powerhouse. Perhaps he truly surpassed the main character. The crowd stood paralyzed in absolute awe. 𝒀𝒏𝒕's prodigy was a literal monster. That name ignited a cold fury within him. Their families were ancient, blood-sworn rivals. His sisters were now targets in this war. The academy's gates finally swung open. Thunderous applause greeted the new arrivals. The stage was set for the first-year elite. The council president watched with predatory eyes. He demanded nothing but absolute, crushing power. Albert was a legendary third-year titan. His lineage was carved from the blood of paladins. They were strangers in his past life. Yet, at 18, Albert had already reached S rank. Was he the mastermind behind the slaughter? His aura felt like a suffocating, B-rank curse. The entire student council were high-tier monsters. Each one possessed power that defied logic. Only the 4 strongest warriors ruled here. The martial arts champion claimed the throne. Albert's strength was undeniably beyond human limits. Was this the man who destroyed his future? He had to show them true, overwhelming terror. In this academy, votes meant absolutely nothing. Only martial prowess dictated the hierarchy. He would climb up and shatter Albert's pride. He waited in the silence of the hall. A figure approached, asking for the empty seat. Bell gave a sharp, indifferent nod. Sit if you want, it makes no difference. The boy introduced himself as 𝒀𝒏𝒂𝒓𝒔, but that name carried a heavy, dark history. A surname he could never truly forget. 𝒀𝒏 noticed the protagonist's gaze turning cold. He brushed it off, hiding his shock. This boy would become the legendary knight of retribution. Though currently weak, his potential was terrifying. 𝒀𝒏 asked for the mysterious student's name. The answer hung dangerously in the air. His father's warning echoed in his mind. Using his real name would ruin everything. He had to earn his glory alone. His path would be forged through pure struggle. I'm Liebel's slayer, he lied without flinching. His true identity would remain a secret. 𝒀𝒏 assumed he was just another peasant. The insignias on their chests marked their fate. Stars for the highborn, circles for trash. Both were branded as lowly commoner outcasts. This school was a playground for nobles. Commoners were just prey for the elite. Let's survive this together, 𝒀𝒏 offered warmly. Befriending a future legend was the best move, a luxury he never had in his past life. A shadow loomed over them with malice. Roger arrived, looking for a victim to break. He was a nightmare from 𝒀𝒏's past. A count's arrogant son at D rank, he viewed commoners as nothing but dirt. His congratulations were dripping with venom. 𝒀𝒏's face turned pale with visible dread. Athena is no place for stray dogs, he sneered, telling the commoners to vanish. Slaves must obey their masters, he hissed. I can crush your life with one word. Bell's killing intent suddenly filled the air. That's enough, he intervened with icy calm. 𝒀𝒏 trembled as the tension reached its peak. Roger's gaze burned with absolute, pure disgust. Who gave this commoner permission to speak? He ordered the noble to back off. Roger lunged forward, moving like a viper. A brutal kick sent 𝒀𝒏 crashing down. Roger laughed, relishing the sound of pain. "You're no paladin," Belle spat with contempt. "You're just a coward hiding behind status. The weak exist only to be exploited." The noble's arrogance was a rotting disease. "Counties can fall in a single night." He warned that status was a fragile illusion. Roger's mana exploded in a violent burst. A divine weapon appeared in his hand. Bloodshed was now the only way out. He prepared to summon his legendary armament. Roger's curiosity piqued dangerously now. Our hero promised a painful lesson, but Roger scoffed, his hatred burning hotter than ever. To Roger, that blunt tool was pathetic, yet our hero smirked, calling the noble weaker than an insect. Infuriated by a mere commoner's gaze, the noble vowed to end his life right then and there. Our hero welcomed the challenge as the entire class watched, sensing an epic clash was about to erupt. Roger lunged forward, completely oblivious to his fate as a disposable background character in this world. Our hero braced for the strike, tracking every move, until a mysterious hand suddenly halted their lethal dance. A woman's lyre notes shattered the tension, its jarring melody forcing both warriors to freeze in their tracks. She demanded peace among classmates, her voice commanding total attention as the chaotic atmosphere vanished instantly. Belle watched the stranger warily as the girl continued strumming that strange, mystical instrument. She was 𝒀𝒏𝒕, a high-ranking noble whose family lineage far eclipsed Roger's petty aristocratic status. Their teacher finally arrived, ordering everyone to their desks as the first true trial began. The first task was simple yet brutal, a full evaluation of their latent powers. Students had to unleash their divine armaments upon massive golems, revealing the true extent of their hidden strength. One student stepped up, blade gleaming, and threw his entire weight into a desperate first strike. But the golem was ironclad. His sword barely left a scratch on its impenetrable surface. The beast healed instantly, a fact our hero noted as others failed to leave a mark. The instructor sighed, seeing only mediocre E-rank results and pathetic displays of basic elemental mana. Next up was Lion, wielding a magicless spear that screamed bottom-tier F-rank to the entire class. The boy lunged, driving his steel tip into the monster's core with everything he had. He was sent flying. Roger laughed at the magicless failure, but the boy stubbornly rose again. Roger stepped forward to prove his superiority, his weapon erupting in a blinding, crimson inferno. With arrogant precision, his scythe bit deep into the target, unleashing a wave of pure devastation. Gasps filled the room. The teacher nodded, impressed by his solid D-rank display of power. Roger smirked, claiming the top spot, until the blonde girl stepped into the spotlight for her turn. Her fingers danced across the lyre, weaving a lethal melody of impending destruction. Violent sonic waves rippled through the air, shattering the golem's armor into thousands of tiny fragments. These two were true monsters. Roger bowed low, his respect fueled solely by her superior noble bloodline. It was all a mask, a desperate attempt to gain favor with a powerful ally. But she shut him down instantly, declaring that within these walls, noble titles meant absolutely nothing. Roger fumed at the rejection. Now, it was finally time for our hero to take the stage. The noble sneered, certain that a commoner with a mere sheath was bound for pathetic failure. Belle smiled calmly, drawing the legendary Caliburn instead. The real show was about to begin. Roger's jaw dropped. A commoner possessing dual divine armaments, it was completely unheard of. Even 𝒀𝒏𝒕 froze in shock. However, Roger quickly noticed the blade lacked even a spark of magic. He expected our hero to bounce off, but Belle told him to watch very closely. In a flash of steel, a relentless barrage of strikes reduced the golem to absolute dust. The classroom fell into a deathly silence. Even the instructor was paralyzed by his raw power. He shattered the beast with pure technique, proving magic was unnecessary for a true master. Roger's mind fractured in disbelief while Lion rushed over, beaming with pure, unadulterated joy. Belle called it a simple feat, promising Lion that he too could reach such heights. Belle saw the hidden spark within Lion, knowing his weapon held a legendary, untapped power. With unwavering resolve, he could rise to become the realm's most formidable holy knight. Lion turned bright red, but their moment was interrupted as Seela suddenly stepped forward. She demanded to know his secret, her intense proximity making our hero break a sweat. Flickers of steel left the crowd breathless. They whispered his blade must be a top-tier divine relic. Hearing those rumors, Roger's lackey trembled. He stammered a retraction, desperate to appease his master's ego. Claiming Roger's gear was superior didn't help. The noble's fury only intensified as the day's training concluded. Tomorrow brought the true test. A hunt within the monster-infested woods behind the academy awaited everyone. As students buzzed about the mysterious prodigy, Roger summoned his shadow. His personal guardian appeared instantly. The knight looked gaunt and sickly. Yet, Roger prepared a secret familiar to ensure his victory tomorrow. The weary warrior questioned if they would deploy such power during a mere school exam. Roger dismissed the concern with a sneer. His servant offered hollow praise for the master's supposed boldness. He hungered for their screams of despair. That arrogant commoner was about to take a one-way trip to hell. The testing grounds were set. Rankef and Ranky beasts were unleashed to thin the herd of students. The objective was simple: exterminate the monsters. The highest kill count would secure the ultimate score. Malice dripped from Roger's every movement. Finally, the signal blared. The bloody massacre had officially started. It was time to unleash their hidden potential. The young lady challenged our hero for the top spot. She had no idea the throne was already claimed. He needed to engrave his overwhelming power into their souls. Young Lime stepped forward, begging to join the legend on his path to dominance. Accepting the tag-along, he warned there would be no mercy. They vanished into the dark woods at lightning speed. The silence was short-lived. A swarm of vicious predators emerged from the thick brush. They were mere fodder. His blade sliced through hide and bone as easily as parchment. 15 corpses already littered the ground. To him, this wasn't a battle, it was a light morning stretch. Lime stared in absolute awe, but there was no room for chatter in this den of monsters. A beast lunged at Lime's throat, but our hero intervened. The monster count was spiraling out of control. Terror threatened to paralyze the young boy. Lime had to shatter his own cowardice to survive. While the others struggled through the ranks, he knew he had to push beyond human limits. From the shadows, Roger watched with venomous eyes. He couldn't stand the sight of those low-born peasants succeeding. Their funeral was long overdue. Raising his staff, he began an incantation to summon a true nightmare. Our hero's senses flared. A sinister magic circle was burning a hole into reality itself. A behemoth wreathed in hellfire crawled out. It was a great salamander, a creature of pure destruction. Its jagged fangs dripped with molten saliva. Pure terror washed over the students like a tidal wave. While the crowd fled in panic, he stood his ground. Lime froze, paralyzed by the beast's murderous intent. Once again, the scales of life and death tipped. Our hero's shield absorbed the inferno. He barked an order for Lime to retreat immediately. A rank B monster shouldn't be here, but this was the entertainment he had been waiting for. Radiant blades of light manifested in the air. He launched his divine punishment against the scaly titan. The creature's armor crumbled like glass. Roger's jaw dropped at the sight of such high-tier sorcery. The noble grew desperate. He signaled his knight to intervene and crush this commoner once and for all. Glistening blades caged the beast. Lime watched, mesmerized by the sheer spectacle of his power. The monster's time on this earth had reached its end. Just as the killing blow fell, the knight's steel intervened. Our hero instantly sensed the foul play afoot. A sinister figure stepped from the trees. He mocked our hero, feigning admiration for his unique skills. Recognizing the beast's master, he demanded to know what this intruder was searching for. "I only want your head," the knight hissed. Fireballs rained down as the warrior lunged with lethal intent. The clash of powers created a blinding fog. With a sharp gust from his shield, he cleared the battlefield. The knight was one step ahead. A swirling water prison expanded, trapping our hero's radiant blades. His skills were neutralized. He was facing a rank B paladin who specialized in sealing magic. Trapped between a hellish beast and a deadly knight, the true battle for survival began. Faced with a pincer attack, he parried one blow with his shield and countered with a lethal sword strike. His current stats were far too low. Panic surged as Lime realized he was completely outmatched. His friend was doomed at this rate. Suddenly, he spotted Roger lurking suspiciously deep within the forest. The summoning staff. He lunged at Roger, who never expected the weakling to track him down. "Is this familiar yours?" Lime demanded. "Stop this madness before the main character gets killed." Roger lashed out instantly. "Know your place, trash. Stay down on the ground where you belong." The weight of his helplessness crushed him, triggering traumatic memories of his brutal childhood training days. Labeled a magicless failure, he'd endured endless humiliation. But today, the cycle of suffering finally ends. He forced himself to stand, fueled by the main character's words echoing in his mind. For the first time, someone believed in him. He wouldn't let his friend die, he would be the savior. Roger sneered in disbelief. "You think you can win? A worm is still just a pathetic insect." "Shut your mouth," Lime growled. "You don't decide my worth." Roger's confidence began to flicker. "Magic won't save you," Roger barked. Lime simply smirked. "You're absolutely right about that." The cursed scythe erupted in light. Roger lunged to kill, but Lime's aura remained completely unshakable. With one thrust, Lime's spear froze the raging inferno, causing the flames to vanish into thin air. "The only trash here is you." Enraged, Roger charged, but Lime's spear held firm against the assault. Steel shrieked as their weapons locked together in a desperate struggle for dominance. Roger's mind raced in total disbelief, while Lime executed his plan with cold, perfect precision. With a shattering blow, Lime destroyed the divine armament. Roger collapsed, his world completely crumbling. Beaten by an F rank? Impossible. Lime looked down, wondering why he ever feared this pathetic coward. "Hand over the summoning staff," Lime ordered. Roger stammered. "Do you have any idea who I am?" "My noble family will erase yours," Roger threatened, still desperately clinging to his fading pride. He still didn't understand reality. Lime froze the bully's legs solid. "The staff, now, or lose your life." With his pride utterly obliterated, the noble finally relented and surrendered the powerful artifact. He begged for mercy, promising to change. The once mighty noble was now just a broken dog. The staff changed hands. "Stay away from us," Lime warned, "or the next time I won't stop." Lime exhaled, but Roger wasn't finished. Hidden nearby, the chain of his weapon began to pulse with light. A lethal sneak attack was already in motion. Roger thought he had him, but Lime parried effortlessly. How predictable, how truly and utterly pathetic. With a heavy crunch, Lime crushed the staff underfoot. Roger could only stare in horrified silence. The artifact was gone. Without its source, the giant salamander flickered and faded into mist. The night had taken a shocking turn. Across the field, the knight realized his master had fallen. Seeing Roger subdued, the knight turned toward the main character, but he was pinned and unable to act. The true mastermind behind this conspiracy had finally been dragged into the light. Their goal was the main character's head. What a pity they chose the wrong target. In a fair duel, the knight was nothing. He fired desperately, but every shot missed its mark. Things were looking grim. Despite his B-rank title, this knight was the lowest of the low. Bam! The main character slammed his sword hilt directly into the knight's arrogant skull. The power gap was insurmountable. "You're going to the guards," the main character declared coldly. Suddenly, the knight dropped to his knees, begging for his life. The shift caught everyone off guard. "I was just a tool," he wailed. "A commoner cannot disobey a noble's absolute command." But it was all a calculated act, a desperate ploy to lure the boy into a deadly trap. He faked gratitude while preparing to strike, but the boy smirked. "Did you think I was that naive?" He had seen through the betrayal before the knight even moved a muscle. Lime rushed to his friend's side. Without Lime's sudden awakening, this night would have ended in tragedy. A debt was repaid. That handshake forged an unbreakable bond of loyalty. Students flocked to him in awe. Toppling a B-rank knight was legendary, yet a darker plot brewed. That fallen knight served Roger. The fire salamander's rampage was no accident but a planned strike. He was utter trash, but his malice only fueled the main character's rising fame among his peers. His true power was terrifying. Humbly, he accepted the praise, looking like the legend he was destined to be. Hidden eyes watched the spectacle from the cold shadows. The blonde beauty smirked. She decoded his divine armament secret. Roger's reckoning had finally arrived. She lingered at the hall's end, waiting to confront the hero with a secret. He recognized her as Selah. "What is it you want?" he asked, his voice calm but sharp. "Avalon." She whispered the name of his hidden weapon, and his heart nearly stopped. She knew it was the sacred blade of ancient heroes. How did she possess such forbidden knowledge? His stunned silence confirmed it. She was the first to see through his disguise and recognize his power. Sensing his worry, she dropped her guard. She clasped her hands and bowed with deep respect. "Please let me see your blade." He never expected such a humble and polite request. She had always dreamed of that hero's weapon. With a simple nod, he revealed the sacred sheath. Awe flooded her eyes. Myth had become reality. "How do you know of this?" he demanded. "My family bloodline speaks of a hero, a master, who wielded an infinite weapon sheath." Perhaps a past master of his power was one of her own ancestors. Lime sensed the weapon's greatness. Selah beamed with joy. A lifelong dream was finally realized. To repay the favor she proposed, they go out together for a day. A local cafe was the perfect spot. Lime cheered and our hero sought to explore this new world. "I'll come, but I'm bringing company." Soon the young group gathered at the shop. Sarah adored the strawberry pie. Seeing her smile made his years of suffering feel worth it. Selah was stunned by Sarah's grace. The young girl blushed shyly, hiding her face from the compliment. Her happiness was his ultimate reward. For once, the battle-hardened warrior felt true peace. A joy unknown in his past life of hellish training. Selah then called for their attention. A divine song was about to begin, a melody played by a weapon of the gods. She struck the lyre, but the sound was ear-piercing garbage. Her musical talent was non-existent. It was all for a laugh. The cafe erupted in cheers, demanding she continue her comedic performance. "You are next," she teased Lime, dragging him into the fun to entertain the crowd. Their laughter filled the air. Finally, he had found his first real friends in this world. Outside, the joy continued. Selah suggested taking Sarah on a private shopping trip for clothes. His overprotective instincts flared, but the girls insisted this was a secret ladies' outing. "Tell me if anything happens." Selah realized then he was the ultimate devoted older brother. "Do you have siblings?" Sarah asked. Selah looked down sadly just as a dark presence approached. Ian of the student council arrived. A cold and formal meeting between estranged half-siblings. He saw her only as a tool. "Train harder, your divine weapon must serve my future wars." "I will never be your soldier," she declared, with iron resolve and burning defiance. He bared his arms. "Your defiance is becoming a nuisance that I must correct. Then I will drag you back by force." Blood erupted from his palms, gushing with lethal intent. Sarah trembled in horror. The boy manipulated the crimson liquid like a demonic master. A blood-based divine armament. Selah screamed for Mary, but the enemy had already struck. Her protector lay broken in the dust. The situation had turned into a deadly nightmare. "We are leaving now," he barked. "Run, Sarah, save yourself," Selah screamed in desperation. She reached for her lyre to defend them, but the blood-drenched strike was already descending. Intervention was needed instantly to stop this escalating chaos. Sarah faced a deadly strike, but a shadow intervened. Powerless against his pressure, she was levitated by dark energy. Sarah trembled, while her brother reveled in his cruelty. In despair, Sarah begged our hero for aid. He severed the tentacles, rescuing the girl with surgical precision. Sarah felt relief. He demanded the villain's true goal. Peace shattered. as the mystery man questioned his identity. He warned the protagonist not to meddle in family matters. "Lion, protect the girls. I have a face to pulverize." The villain laughed, claiming there was no merit in saving her. Parrying was easy. Protecting friends was simply his nature. His strike hit a shield. The villain mocked his effort. "That barrier is thick. Clashing now would waste his mana." The villain lunged, but our hero dodged like a ghost. Annoyed, he unleashed a barrage. To our hero, it was predictable. Then he summoned the legendary Fire Spitter. Multiple divine weapons. The protagonist's counteroffensive was absolute. They were locked in a tense stalemate. Desperate to capture her, he forged a blood spear. The final strike was here. The protagonist didn't blink. They clashed violently, while powerful observers watched from above. Shadows descended, shattering the concrete like glass upon landing. A juggernaut landed between them, eager to join the fray. The council arrived, mocking the villain for bullying children. The girl laughed, calling him a pathetic, struggling weakling. Faced with monsters, he stopped. Z wished it lasted longer. Glowing with power, he encased his body in heavy armor. His presence was massive and suffocatingly powerful. Magical chains locked him down. They weren't there for blood. Sensing her mana, he knew she was a true monster. He broke the chains easily. The council had a mission. A month-long forest expedition begins this very instant. With no choice, he left, vowing to return later. The council vanished. Truly, the academy was full of monsters. He checked his friends. Sarah apologized for the danger. "It's fine. Why is your own brother hunting you?" "He wants the inheritance and views her as prey. He plans to conquer lands filled with lethal creatures. Her weapon is his key to war, but she refused. She wants the throne herself, matching our hero's resolve. But the power gap was an impassable, soul-crushing canyon. Your protection gave her hope. Sarah's gratitude was profound." The protagonist approached the girl to offer his thanks. "Strength is for protecting. If you're weak, then train harder." Lime pledged her support as well. Initially speechless, she felt a profound surge of gratitude toward her newfound allies. The hero realized that the previous strike could have claimed his life instantly. He returns in 1 month. Bell must ascend and awaken his hidden innate talent now. Seeking the Joker's counsel, he must enter the ancestral realm to claim forbidden ancient powers. Closing his eyes, he focused, spiraling intense mana through his sheathed blade. The ghostly predecessors gathered. A long age had passed since their last fated meeting. Though he had a request, the spirits witnessed his last clash and knew the artifact's danger. That foe manipulates reality like Avalon itself. A heavy, tense silence filled the void. The Joker warned that burning that cursed bloodline is key. Bell agreed, craving his ultimate ability. The jester surprisingly agreed, without a single doubt. Claiming it was just a prank, Charlotte snapped, telling the fool to end his games. Yet his aura is overwhelming. Humor hides power, but this skill drains mana like a vacuum. Using it now would leave him empty. However, the jester demands a steep price first. He must fire 300 shots daily before the rematch, an utterly impossible feat for any human. 100 shots is his current limit. The comedian ignores excuses, demanding results before his return. With a sharp snap of fingers, Bell's soul surged back into his physical vessel. He realized that behind the laughter, the Joker possessed a truly sadistic streak. To wield that power, he needs 3 times his current mana. Achieving this seems biologically impossible. The ancients deemed it a suicide mission, yet they watched with curiosity to see his growth. Failure means stagnation. Without more strength, certain death awaits him in the next duel. Entering the dark woods, our hero began his relentless training, slaughtering weak monsters with ease. The physical toll was brutal. Only through constant hunting can his mana pool truly expand. He vowed to slay everything. His allies watched in awe, glad they joined this hellish training. Everyone craved evolution. That common goal is how she persuaded Lai to join the fray. Ambition eclipsed their terror. Having loyal comrades by his side fueled Bell's rapid ascent toward power. After 100 blasts, he felt hollow. His power flickered upward, yet remained tragically insufficient. His progress was too slow. Suddenly, a monstrous roar, unlike any orc, shook the entire forest. Fearing for his friends, he rushed toward the sound, finding a massive beast collapsed and unmoving. Beside the carcass, his comrades cheered their victory. The girls showered Bell with enthusiastic praise. He wondered if they truly felled the Titan alone. The impossible truth stood before him. That was a high-tier predator. Despite their lower levels, they utilized a flawless, high-IQ combat strategy. First, they locked the beast inside a frozen prison. Then, sonic waves bounced off the ice walls, creating a devastating resonance. Their synergy was masterful. That was the power of their combo. Seeing this sparked a brilliant idea within Bell's mind. He finally found a way to spam his shots. Suddenly, a fresh orc horde emerged nearby. Facing such a massive group, while exhausted spelled certain disaster for the battered young party. But our hero smiled. He had a plan. They never expected him to possess such monstrous potential. As he vanished, the girl realized he had an urgent mission to complete within the void. The ancestors gaped. The boy returned to the void far ahead of schedule. The Joker expected excuses, but Bell claimed the task was finished, leaving the legends completely speechless. Completing that in one day was impossible. The Joker thought Bell was the one telling jokes. They challenged him to prove his growth in actual combat. He must fire every shot mid-battle, using any weapon available, unless he was a total coward. The hero smirked, embracing the challenge. He waited for the signal to ignite the grand battle. Tensions peaked as the Elder gave the signal. The Joker watched, hungry for a true spectacle. Bell drew his weapon, but the comedian's bullet found its mark before he could blink. Mocked for being slow, the boy realized the legendary user's speed was on a different level. The comedian enters his 100-joke stance, but our hero refuses to back down. Steel clashing and bullets flying, Charlotte finally sees why the Elder chose this monster of a kid. His master beams with pride. The battle has only begun, and the tension is suffocating. Could the boy even pull the trigger again? That was the only question that mattered now. Even Adam knew 100 shots wouldn't suffice against this Titan. The boy gritted his teeth, pushing past his limits as the comedian danced through the gunfire. 97 shots. Adam counted every single desperate attempt as the boy's rhythm shattered. Boredom struck the comedian, but the protagonist unleashed his trump card, the ultimate shield. A desperate defense. This sudden shift forced the comedian to rethink his entire game plan. Harnessing the gale, the boy channeled wind through his pistol. What madness was he planning? "Those bullets won't touch me," the hero declared. Gale force shots erupted, shattering the comedian's dominance and leaving him in absolute shock. Efficiency at its peak. Even with low mana, the comedian finally felt the weight of pressure. A genius move. Not even his legendary mentor saw this evolution coming. Charla's heart raced, praying for her friend to land the final, decisive blow. The comedian questioned his late timing, reminding him of the trap he'd set to finish him. Hidden arts revealed. The boy countered the comedian's opening shot, turning the tides of fate. Mana fading fast, the duel turned into a brutal test of sheer iron will. The legend was finally being cornered. This was the end, but the comedian wouldn't fall without one last trick. Vanishing behind a veil of inferno, he became a ghost within the flames. Blinded and struck from behind, the boy tracked the chameleon's scent, but the predator struck again. Cornered like prey, the boy stood trapped within a ring of suffocating fire. A gust of destiny. He blew the flames away, exposing the comedian's hidden position. The target was locked. A clear shot opened up for our protagonist. But his gun stayed silent. The situation had turned into a total nightmare. Magic exhausted. Both warriors stood drained, bullets spent and mana cores running dry. One final impact. The comedian collapsed to his knees, defeated at long last. 301 shots. The boy pushed beyond the impossible before falling unconscious. Victory by a hair. Impressed by such tenacity, the comedian offered a hand of respect. Approval earned. The weapon's hidden, god-tier ability was finally ready to awaken. Humbly, the legend helped him up. The boy vowed to master this divine power. With this new skill, he was ready to crush that arrogant bastard for good. The comedian's legacy was safe. He promised his pupil would bring home the ultimate victory. Days later, the grind continues. Deep in the forest, his quest for power never stops. Refining his godlike mastery, his friends watched in awe as his aura surged. "Teach us your secrets," they begged, mesmerized by his overwhelming unique ability. "Just keep hunting," he said. "Only through endless battle can one truly ascend." But he shared a secret masterclass method to multiply their current hidden potential. Sit, close your eyes, and let your spirit resonate with the world. This hand seal circulates mana effortlessly. 1 hour of meditation unlocks doors to infinite growth. It sharpens the mind and makes releasing explosive power second nature in combat. Inspired, they began their journey. It's a slow burn, but the results are legendary. Mana surged through his allies' veins. Even for geniuses, their growth was unnervingly fast. Their talent was monstrous. To stay the absolute strongest, he dove back into his hellish training. Every drop of sweat further refined his unique, god-tier ability. 5 days became 10. Soon, they were clashing in fierce duels to sharpen their killing intent. 20 days of grinding later, a full month had passed. Then, that trash finally reappeared. He didn't come alone for the sister this time. Both siblings had undergone a terrifying transformation. "Secure the girl," the villain barked at his pawn. "I'll crush this pest myself." The pawn moved, but she wasn't helpless. She struck first, her divine weapon radiating holy light. He dodged with blinding speed, but Lime wouldn't let her comrade face death alone. She charged with savage fury. No one was taking Alice on her watch. Elsewhere, our hero stood ready to settle the score. But first, one final question remained. What use had he for his sister? Her heirloom weapon could dominate souls through pure sound. She could turn entire armies into puppets, a perfect tool for total conquest. Such a vile ambition. To him, his own blood was nothing more than a disposable asset. No more words were needed. That monster didn't deserve the title of a brother. The villain scoffed, thinking rage was useless. Little did he know he was already dead. His stance was bizarre. The hero aimed the muzzle at himself, igniting his secret technique. Flames pierced his own heart, shrouding his form in the legendary soul incineration. Though he hid his shock, the villain knew this power was becoming a problem. Wings erupted as his power spiked. Every physical limit was shattered in an instant. He moved like a localized hurricane. The villain's desperate shots were laughably slow. It was futile. His holy flames vaporized the enemy's blood before it could even touch him. Now, it was time to erase this filth from existence once and for all. He lunged with a crushing blow. Panicked, the villain conjured a desperate shield. The barrier held for a second before spiderwebbing. The next strike would be its last. A heavy fist connected with his jaw, launching him backward. His blood magic was now worthless. He should have stayed down, but the cockroach crawled back to his feet once more. His eyes glowed with malice as his skin warped. His very blood began to boil. In this new form, his pressure was immense. Even our hero was momentarily wary. Dragon blood. He was morphing into a winged beast, his combat power soaring to Rankess levels. The crushing weight of his aura was suffocating. "Feel honored to die by my hand," he hissed. Razor-sharp claws extended. The true draconic fury was about to be unleashed. Bell tracked every twitch. Thanks to his training, he evaded the lethal strike. A shallow cut appeared. The dragon man smirked, surprised the prey had survived the opening move. Seizing the opening, Bell unleashed a torrent of scorching flames that struck with pinpoint accuracy. An earth-shattering explosion rocked the area. turning the battlefield into a literal inferno. As the smoke cleared, the monster stood unharmed. "Pathetic," he sneered, brushing off the soot. Those draconic scales were impenetrable. With a roar, he charged, claws ready to shred Belle's heart. Flames were useless here. It was time to settle this with raw, crushing physical power. They collided like meteors. Belle danced on the edge of death, narrowly dodging the claws. Belle countered with a rib-shattering blow, but the dragon merely laughed at the impact. His armor-like scales were nearly indestructible. Distracted for a split second, a massive tail slammed into Belle, pinning him to the earth. As the dragon charged a lethal spell, Belle fired a desperate blast to stall the inevitable. The enemy's magic was overwhelming. After the massive blast, Belle stood gasping, his mana nearly depleted. Grit wasn't enough. His body was finally breaking. One more dragon strike meant certain, messy death. Mana ran dry while his allies fought below. Facing a B-rank monster, they gambled on unity. Lion charged first, forcing the foe's desperate defense. His spear trap triggered a cage of frozen walls. Now, the girl unleashed her devastating sonic barrage. They believed this combo would end the fight. But the knight sneered, slamming his ominous staff. A dark void swallowed their hopes into nothingness. Hope vanished as he prepared a lethal counter. Their own power returned as a portal of doom. He claimed her as tribute for his master. Lime stepped forward, refusing to let her go. The knight's experience crushed the boy's spirit. She watched in horror as her friend fell, paralyzed in fear, while Lime was brutally beaten. She recalled the protagonist's lessons on true focus. Calm the mind, let the inner power explode. Lime faced execution when her mana finally awakened. Sound cut the air, parrying the killing blow. The knight's confusion signaled the turning tide. Her song granted Lime the strength of legends. The boy's counterstrike left the knight reeling. Desperate, the knight invoked his divine frost weapon. But the frozen tides turned against their master. The knight was entombed. The MC's time came. Seeing them safe, he finally unleashed his aura. Time to reveal his forbidden, hell-trained trump card. The dragon sensed a terrifying, godlike pressure. Witness true despair, the ancient beast roared. The heavens cracked under their surging battle spirits. One final gamble to survive the ultimate strike. The dragon's cataclysmic breath finally erupted forth. A sun-sized sphere of destruction consumed the sky. He countered with a desperate wall of fire. But the dragon's primal might was simply absolute. Engulfed in light, the hero seemed utterly erased. Suddenly, a phantom appeared behind the dragon's neck. The beast had forgotten his own blind spot. A flame clone, a feat of god-tier mastery. The hunter had finally become the hunted. Experience the result of my 100-year suffering. His fist blazed with the weight of stars. One punch, and the dragon knew true terror. Those cerulean flames were the boy's ultimate trump card. His glorious fist struck the enemy's spine. Shattering dragon scales with agonizing force, it felt impossible that a mere child could overcome such power. Eventually, he stirred. His entire body lay frozen, trapped within a prison of ice. Both master and servant lay defeated. Slow and agonizing moments passed before consciousness finally returned. The dragon expected nuisance from children, but in total defeat, his arrogance had simply vanished. The girl issued a chilling warning. She would never be his tool nor allow his bloody war. Shockingly, he conceded. His sudden compliance felt like a trap, leaving them paralyzed with suspicion. Despite her doubts, Lime shattered her divine weapon, dissolving the ice. She banished him forever. Without a single word, he and his mage retreated into the shadows. The brutal clash drained everyone. Defeating a student council member was a feat that shocked the world. He claimed it was luck. The girl vowed to eventually repay the kindness of her newfound allies. But true comrades don't keep score. That's just not how their bond worked. She insisted they were best friends, words that filled our main character with pure, unbridled joy. This victory painted a target on their backs. The student council would surely retaliate soon. He needed absolute power to face Albert. He refused to let history repeat its tragic cycle again. He would become the absolute rank one, shocking everyone as he crushed his brother for the family throne. He would finally protect his sister. Years of training passed, and the fated battle finally began. The main character finally confronted his brother, radiating a level of power that defied logic. Now the family head, Jin cared little for titles. He spoke of a dark curse haunting his brother. In his past life, failure to protect loved ones was his greatest shame. That agony was truly unbearable. After 100 years of hell training and suffering, he mastered pain. Now, no enemy could defeat him. With his sister's life at stake, these rivals clashed to rewrite the very stars of destiny. He struck his brother with every ounce of his soul,